Welcome to the Big Week in Gaming podcast. And what do you know? It's been a big week in gaming. I'm integot for episode 75 on this Sunday, the 3rd of April, 2022. In this week's show, we'll be discussing Sony revealing their revamped PlayStation Plus service, Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 getting delayed to next year, E3 2022 gets its final nail in its coffin, and we take a look at the legendary SNES classic Chrono Trigger.
Shut up! Bigwig's on the radio! Shut up! It's gaming from the studio!
As always, I'm joined by Mike.
Hello, and fuck the internet. Life was better without it.
And Swinny.
I can't top that one.
Also, people won't understand without the context of listening to the stream rather than the start of the show. But if you do want to check out our stream, go to bigwigpod.com and you see all the links, or check out the description. All right, I got to address the elephant in the room. Can we talk about Will Smith? This is what the whole podcast is going to be about now. Can I just say it one way to make it framed around gaming? So when 2 years ago, Joseph Fares was at the Game Awards, and he's like, fuck the Oscars, fuck them, gaming is so much better than the Oscars. I'm like, oh, this is embarrassing for gaming. Now, this would never happen at the Oscars. Now, somehow, they've topped him. They've fucking topped him so hard. And he actually looks more sane than they do. It's amazing.
It is one of those moments that just in pop culture that I think is just unforgettable now for all the wrong reasons. But
Yeah,
the amount of memes and funny jokes that have come out of it have entertained me endlessly. I will completely admit it is, as someone has put it, the gift that keeps on giving.
Yeah, it's
Joe.
It's wild. It's so wild. And we haven't seen the end of it. That's the amazing thing. It's going to go on for a while. So,
And the fact that he went on to win the Oscar is just one of the most. That's the cherry on the top of that bizarre moment.
the biggest thing, because, I love film and TV. I don't watch the Oscars anymore, but I must admit, I almost always know who's won the actress, actor, supporting actress, actor, best film. Don't tell me who it is, but I legitimately do not know. If someone said, here's $1 million, just tell me who won best film. I've no idea. Like, it swallowed all the media about the Oscars. And I think, ultimately, that's actually going to be one of the most damning things about it. Like, you can never get those moments back for those people. Like, I didn't even know that Questlove won an Oscar until, later. I was like, holy shit, Questlove won an Oscar? That's crazy.
Don't even know who that is.
Oh, okay.
It's even crazier. I don't if I think about it, I don't even know what films came out in the last year.
I'm with you on that one, Mike.
Oh, you don't know
another
Questlove
line,
either?
another
Oh my
line.
God.
No,
Okay.
I just sat here and pretended to
The
be silent about
Roots.
Look it up.
Okay,
Quest.
yeah.
Oh,
What's
he's in
her
the
name?
Roots.
What?
Okay, I
He's
didn't-
her
Well,
name?
he's the lead for the
Okay.
Roots.
Okay.
So he's Ben Lee.
Okay.
But
I don't
anyway,
know.
yeah, no. So I think that was and obviously it's crazy what happened. Like it's almost unfathomable. And one of the best moments, and the last thing I want to say about it, is when Chris Rock. I can't remember exactly the words. He goes, "I could," or "I wanna," or "I could say." He was ready to go. Oh, I could just say 50 jokes right now that are 1,000 times worse than.
Demi should have.
Then Demi Moore, who looks incredible, right, in G.I. Jane, it's G.I. Jane 2. What an insult. Wow. Out of all the things that you could hear from her as well. But yeah, wow, that was a crazy moment.
Hey, speaking of crazy moments, just real quick.
Yes.
My girlfriend was driving today, and she starts hearing on the radio, "Shut up!" So she calls me. She's like, "Hey, someone's ripping off your song. What's going on the radio?"
That's awesome. That is actually funny.
That was kind of cool.
That's amazing. That's amazing. It sounds slightly different because for anyone that doesn't know, although I think it's obvious, part of the intro song is me and part of the intro song is the original voice. So it's kind of like there's two. It's a mix of the original and something we've done. But yeah, it's been 75 plus episodes because we've obviously used it for a couple of interstitial episodes.
Yeah.
And I still like it. I still enjoy it. Maybe one day we'll need to change it, but I still think it holds up.
I just
awesome.
think it kind of would be funny if we got copyrights struck down for every single episode. It's like I have to take everything offline because I think it'll just get muted. So it's probably not the end of
Just
the
the
world.
clips would remain. The
That's
clips
true.
that we
That's
have on
true.
our show.
But we should say it is from Triple M Melbourne. Shut up.
Yeah, that's what you heard of that.
Yeah. What is it? Shut up. The footy's on the radio.
Something, the footy's on the radio, yeah.
It's TISM. This is serious.
Well, yeah,
Mum.
sorry, TISM. But no, I think TISM actually made it for Triple M, right?
Yeah. But it's TISM. I just want to.
But the thing
great,
is,
great Melbourne band.
we are referencing the 90s version of it and the aughts because they've changed it now, Swinny. I don't know if you've heard Triple M recently,
no.
but they've sped it up. It's like the TikTok generation. It's faster now. It's like, shut up, footy's on the radio. It's like super compressed. It's horrible.
Interesting.
So yeah. But anyway, let's get back to the show. So how are we all tracking? This is our question of the week. How are we all tracking on our 2022 gaming resolutions? I think last year we did this check-in and Mike and I were already out by the time that we were like a quarter of the way through. How are we tracking now? Do you want me to zip through mine or?
Yeah, go ahead.
All right. So I need to finish the story of Ring Fit Adventure. I haven't played it that much. So, it'd be iffy. I need to.
What is that much? Can I ask how much time?
I've
do you think you
finished
put
one or
into
two more worlds.
Okay.
And I'm up to world
Fair
now 15 or 16. So I'm about halfway through the game. So it's not too bad. It's definitely manageable. The other one is keeping a positive ratio of games completed. So how many games I've completed divided by how many games I've bought. So I've bought Elden Ring and beaten it. Have I beaten any other games? Chrono Trigger I beat this year. Mm-hmm. That's 2 games. I think I've only beaten 2 games. I'm not sure. Have I beaten more? I'm not sure.
How many games have you bought other than Elden?
Elden Ring, Triangle Strategy.
Yeah.
I'll take a while.
Not any others. I don't think any others.
Well, you're doing pretty well then so far.
Not by the
really good.
Don't play
Yeah.
games. That's don't buy
2
or
out of
play
3.
games.
Wow.
And this is the trickiest one. So I need to significantly play all of the 2022 Game Awards nominees.
Well, you've done one of them.
Yeah, Elden Ring's a lot.
If Elden Ring didn't get nominated for Game of the Year at the end of the year, that's it. Like,
I'd be shocked.
I think
Yeah.
Elden Ring's a complete lock. I think unless Starfield launches in a bad state, I think if Starfield launches and it's like exactly like Skyrim and people go, it's 10 years dated or whatever, I still think it will be a lock for
sure.
the top 6. I'm definitely going to play that.
Play it. Yeah.
God of War Ragnarok, if that comes out this year, I feel like that's a lock. But I don't think it's going to come out this year. Hogwarts Legacy, if that comes out this year, I feel like that's going to be a lock now. The media's going crazy about that game. The one that I'm not sure about is Horizon Forbidden West. And it's kind of a lengthy game.
Have you
Is it
beaten
a
the first one?
Nah.
Okay. Oh, well, that's actually the thing is like you don't have to complete them all.
No, but you have to
Yeah.
play like
Significantly
70% or
played.
something like that.
Yeah, but just go through the story. I think that's probably padded with a bunch of side stuff. Like you finished
Yeah.
Elden Ring way quicker than myself and probably quicker than Swinny's going to finish
definitely
it.
quicker than
So
Well, you've already played it more than I have, I think. We'll check in
I think he
shortly
has
on
played
that.
it more than I have, yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. I'm tracking that. How about you, Mike? Have you got them up in front of you?
Thankfully, you put them there because otherwise I probably would have forgotten all my resolutions. Well, actually, I remember 2. I forgot the 3rd one, but I remember it now. So finishing Mass Effect Andromeda. Ooh, that's a tough one. I started. I really got into it. Really got into it, as in I really got into playing it. I did not get into the game. I have to admit, I just wasn't enjoying it.
But you have to beat it
all
now.
that much. But not. Yeah, and it's one of those things where I'm like.
Why'd you do this?
Well, why'd I do that? I'm only doing it because I feel like I have to do that, not because I'm actually enjoying this game. It's weird. I liked it at the very beginning, and then sort of once you start going to a few planets and whatnot, I don't know. It didn't click. Didn't click with me. So we'll see. Might still finish it. Finished The Witcher 3 Wild Hunt. So that's still scheduled.
That's just the story.
The story. It's gonna be like Elden Ring. I don't just finish the stories in these games. I explore everything and then I get to the story.
Because did you ever beat the story in Skyrim?
Yeah.
Oh, you did for the show.
Yeah,
Okay,
finally
okay.
did after hundreds
That's
of hours
funny.
in that
That's
game.
funny.
But with that one, because of the update that's coming out, I'm just waiting till the update, and then I'm gonna hit it. And then the other one is
makes
finish
sense.
Modern Day's Assassin's Creed game. So I purchased one, if that's anything to go by. So
Which one did you buy?
I got I think it was the Ultimate Edition or something, or one of the
Odyssey?
editions with all the thing of Odyssey. Yeah, I figure that's probably the
The
good
best
one to get.
Assassin's Creed game, according
Yeah.
to Bigwig in gaming.
Well, I had
Damn
Valhalla,
straight.
but for some reason I felt more inclined to play that. So
okay.
yeah, going back to that. So not tracking very well though. I haven't even. Well, I started it ages ago, before this resolution came about, but I haven't restarted it. So we'll see how it goes.
Not to get too crazy, we've also rated. We've given a point value to each of these, and yours is the lowest. It's 1 point on each.
I can't even do that. I'm really bad with doing that.
I will gamble that you will not beat Andromeda.
Probably. I'll be honest with
or
you.
Assassin's Creed. I'm going to say Assassin's Creed and Andromeda. Although the story is pretty quick, I'm guessing, in
I
Odyssey.
feel like Assassin's Creed's a much higher chance.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
Andromeda?
It's not actually. It's not.
No.
It's like 50 hours to beat the story.
Whoa.
Also, with Odyssey, you'll find that you can probably bump it all the way down to an easy difficulty, but
He doesn't want to do
the
that.
way that the leveling works is if you don't do any side content at all, you'll struggle a bit, like
That's awesome.
difficulty-wise.
you
So
have
they
to do
balanced
some
it in
stuff.
that
Okay.
way. But anyway,
I'll say it like this, Mike. There's no chance you're going to beat Assassin's Creed or Andromeda. You will beat Wild Hunt. I'll give you that.
That I reckon I definitely will. I mean, it's funny because there's still 9 months left, but
Doesn't matter.
no.
Can we
Not
give him
even
more
that.
points, Swinny?
8 months.
Okay, let's bump
Shit.
his points up because it's.
No. This
Let's
isn't
put
this
2
isn't-
points.
I don't
I'm
need
doing
a
it on the fly.
pity pointage.
yeah, do it. Change it.
All right, how about you, Swinny?
Wait, can I win with the new point system?
No. We established
It's,
that.
there's
it's
no
not
point.
It's not a competition.
Of course it is a competition. Are you kidding me?
To you guys, maybe. So for me, my first resolution was to try out every game that's added to Xbox Game Pass this year, and this one was surprisingly, like, we had this as the lowest point value in mine, and it's probably been the most challenging because it's just there's so many games being added, and it's just honestly the challenge is keeping track of it and just keeping on top of it.
I'm going to change it on the fly as well. I'm bumping this up to a 3 and then the Dark Souls one to a 4.
Of the 47 games, give or take, because that's just currently the list I've got that says 47 games have been added, I've played 34 of them.
Wow.
That's pretty good.
That's insane, dude.
I did catch up quite a bit this week. And by the end of this show, probably talked about maybe 20 of them on the show, but that's not the metric anymore. Like, we scrapped that
Yeah, it was
right
getting
away.
boring. Yeah.
Well, it's also because it's like, then I'll literally overtake the show. So, and the one thing I've got to remember is I've got to make sure I don't leave games on the back burner because they could get removed. And then I've probably no way for
Then
me
you're
to
screwed.
complete
Yeah,
it.
you're
Then
done.
I'm
You have to buy
screwed.
it.
That's true. I would have to buy it. So,
That'd be awesome.
anyway, honestly, most of the games I've left on the back burner are games I actually want to play, and I'm just kind of waiting for them to be patched a bit and stuff. So,
So how
maybe
many have
buy
they added
them
this
sometime.
year already? Did you say 30?
No, about
40
about
something, isn't it?
47, but that's not
Wow.
counting a couple that I don't have as part of my criteria. For instance, ones that I've already played,
Okay.
and
Yeah.
that's
EA
that's
Sports
actually
titles.
EA Sports titles, but I don't think they've added. I think they've added one, but I've actually already played it, which
Okay.
is technically F1 2021.
I thought they had a Madden as well. Madden 22.
Oh, that one I don't know. Maybe that has been added already.
Yeah,
or not.
but it's not counted anyway.
Yeah, so
Quite
anyway,
a lot of titles when you
yeah.
think about it.
No,
I
it's
think
crazy, right?
one every 3 days or something. You
Yeah,
have to play.
so not going too bad. Just I've got to
far.
make up some lost ground. The second one is complete my PlayStation pile of
Piece of
shame,
shit.
which is
Yeah, how's that going?
Same.
which is 13 PlayStation console exclusive games, and it could be from PS3, PS4, PS5, whatever. Just games that I want to complete.
Yeah.
And of the 13, I've completed 2.
That's actually pretty good. 'Cause
So I'm a bit behind, but honestly, the 1-2 punch of Elix 2 and Elden Ring means that if I'd planned on playing Uncharted 2, which was the next one I was going to play, it's kind of I haven't had time. So
Can I say, Swinny, maybe one of the stories on the show, I think our starting story could nicely link in with this
potentially
second resolution.
Potentially.
There's,
And
there's a little hint for the audience, a little breadcrumb there.
And the last one was complete a Soul Level 1 run of
crazy.
Dark Souls, which is not staying at level
Done.
1 the whole game. And I did that earlier in the year, so that one was
Nice.
marked off. So
I actually want to try that now. I just
I
want, like,
recommend it.
I don't think I'll be able to beat it because, like, you said that SNO fight, you can't take a hit, or
No, well,
Like,
SNO you can,
yeah.
but like that's the hardest part of the whole
probably the
thing.
best way to play
Easy.
it, to do it
Yeah.
where you don't get a hit. But that's pretty crazy. All right, well that's good fun. I think a lot more realistic this year. Our resolutions. I mean, like they're all pretty insane, to be honest, in one way or the other. So, All right, let's jump into what we've been playing. And Mike, what have you been playing this week?
Elden Ring. That's it. Yourself?
No, well, no. Look at the run sheet.
Well, that's it.
We'll talk about it. Where are you off to? How many hours in are you?
About 100, I think.
Whoa, shit.
Something like that. I don't know, just under maybe. And yeah, I mean, not much else to say. That's all. That's the only thing I managed to play. So
How's it sitting with you so far in terms of your best games of all time?
oh, absolutely up there. Still totally up there. I do feel after 100 odd hours, you feel a little bit burnt out, but at the same time, there's still
down.
so much to explore that it's weird. Most games you kind of go, screw this game. Whereas with this, I'm still looking forward to seeing what's coming up next. The area that I'm currently in, which I don't want to give spoilers away, but it's got a lot of fog. There's a bit of a storm going on.
I like it just tries to spoil it for you, Swinny.
Well, I can't. No, it doesn't spoil it because you won't know about the area or anything. Point is, visibility is pretty poor, and it's not the most fun areas, and that's all I can say about it.
So it's like the opening of
They
Empire
didn't learn
Strikes Back.
from. They didn't learn from Dark Souls 2's Horsefuck Valley, that is one of the most reviled areas in Souls games, which is a snowy, foggy area. So
That's probably why they included this one too, just to fuck with people. But yeah, so pretty good. You've been playing it as well, right, integot?
No, I'm playing. Look at the run sheet. I haven't
Oh,
played
sorry,
it at all.
Swinny. You've been playing it, Swinny.
I beat it the other week, and then
Yes.
you weren't on the show.
right.
And then I put it down.
he's not up to canon with the show.
Yeah, no, he's
No,
not-
I
show
do
canon,
remember
not up to
that.
speed with show canon.
he's
For
got his
some
own
reason,
head
I
cannon.
looked at the run sheet and I thought you were up next. But yeah, no, Swinny, you've been
Wait,
playing
wait. I want to.
What?
I wanted to say something about it. But like I have to say, putting it down, and I actually got my neighbor to start playing Elden Ring. I'm like, you got to play this game, man. It's freaking awesome. He doesn't play those games normally, and he's like addicted. He's like farming and like leveling up. He's only 20 hours in, and he's level 70. I'm like, are you just farming the whole time?
Well, clearly for that.
He goes,
Yeah.
I'm trying to make the game easier. I'm like,
It kind of doesn't though, dude. That's what I find.
Yeah.
Even after all these hours, and I don't know what level I am, but it'd be pretty high up. You can still get completely decimated by a lot of enemies because maybe because I don't know if it's because I haven't been putting any points into strength, and that's the one that gives you a whole bunch of physical defenses and stuff. But whatever the case may be, I can still get completely smashed if I'm not careful with really high level armor, high poise,
Yeah.
high everything. It's not you. Yeah, you don't become OP like in Skyrim and any of those other games. You still have to be super careful, and you die just as
it's
much as
definitely
at the
not that
start.
bad.
So
Yeah.
which I like. I think it's cool because it always keeps you sort of on the edge. The one thing I will say though is it's all that time wasn't necessarily all game time. I was probably sitting idle or just left the PlayStation or whatever quite a bit sometimes because I just go and do something else and then I come back while resting at a site of grace. But I have been experimenting a lot with different weapons, so I didn't want to sort of stick with just a build. And because you can respec in the game, I've respec a few times and tried all sorts of different things from magic to incantations, bleed builds, arcane builds, all sorts of stuff. And I think it just makes the game way more interesting than just sticking with one thing for the entire thing. So that's been kind of cool and fun.
And how about you, Swinny?
Yeah, so Elden Ring is easily the game I put the most time into this week. I'm actually not going to talk too long about it because kind of going to defer my time till probably next week to spend a bit because I'm at a point where I actually put the game down for a few days just because I did put a lot of time into it, but
Just how many hours have you put into it?
I don't know at the moment.
Oh, okay.
So
Even ballpark?
no,
Maybe
I
like
just don't know.
70, 80?
Look, it's at least 70. I
Yeah,
know
yeah.
that.
Wow, that's nearly
but
as much as
It's
I
more
did.
than
But
me. It's more than me.
Yeah, but look, I did get a bit burnt out with the game.
Yeah.
It's because the game is so high quality, but it's almost like, when you like have a super rich chocolate cake and it feels like too much at the time. Sometimes it felt like that where I'm like, okay, I go in this area and there's like all these ways to go and I'm like, oh, look,
It's too much to explore.
yeah, it
Yeah.
is overwhelming. I mentioned that last week. So I took a break for a few days, played a bunch of Game Pass games and some other games as well. And I'd also, during that, one of the reasons I took a break was because I hit a couple of barriers that I hadn't previously yet. and I realized that the way I was approaching the game and my build wasn't that great. So I kind of also felt I got myself a really cool weapon that suits my build and everything. That's made
What
things a lot
build
better.
were you using? Sorry.
I'm an arcane build. So,
Oh yeah.
and basically what that's helped a lot because I started playing it again today, and the weapon's just really, really fun. I'll talk probably offline about what it is.
Yeah, that'd be cool. I want to know which one.
But yeah, so I'll talk a bit more about it next week.
Well, last thing I want to
so-
say on that is lucky that you didn't play it from the start because the arcane builds were all broken at the start.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, so there you go.
Yeah.
But I can understand if you're getting burnt out, especially if you're playing it like 6 hours a day or something like that. Like that's super intense. So
I feel like it's more than that on average if it's 70 hours though.
I'm just being
I
nice.
don't know. All I know is that also, you know, like this, and I'll talk a bit more about this in the future, but there are some areas of that game that I don't feel are that great. And I think that's also why, like some specific locations, I mean. And I was like, okay, I think I got burned out because I tried to force myself through that at the time.
Okay.
So anyway,
K-lid.
I'm super keen
I
to
wonder.
I'm super keen to talk like review of that game in whatever it is, 3 weeks, a month or whatever. That's gonna be interesting chat.
But that's not the only thing I've been playing the last couple of weeks. So I was going to talk about this last week, but because we spent like an hour talking about Elden Ring, we
At the
deferred
start
it.
of the show.
I'm going to talk about some Game Pass games that I've been playing as part of my resolution, but also some that I just wanted to try out. And the first one is definitely falls in that bucket, which is a game that Mike is familiar with called Paradise Killer. So for anyone that's not familiar with Paradise Killer, it's basically it's a game that is so hard to describe in many ways, but basically it's like a crazy acid trip detective game where you move around in first person around this crazy fantastical world, and you're trying to solve basically you know, a series of murders and all these other cool little mysteries going on. Now I'm still pretty early. I've probably only played the game for a couple of hours, but this game is probably one of the most like creatively inspired games I've ever played. It is just so wild. It's very, to me, it's got vibes of like Killer 7. It's very like Suda 51 in many ways, where especially the audio design and like really distorted voices in a certain way. But it's so off the wall that I could see a lot of people even then straight away just being like, this is not my thing. Like it is so like all the characters are just really weird. All the names are weird. Everything about this game is weird. So it's a lot to take in, but I'm enjoying it. I probably haven't seen all of the systems in terms of like the detective part of it. I've spent a lot of my time just walking around this cool world and finding items and unlocking shortcuts and stuff like that. But I have no idea what the fuck is going on in this game. And Mike, I don't know if did you complete this game?
No, I haven't completed it yet.
It is just the most bizarre game, and like all I know is like there's this sidekick, or it's kind of like a sidekick that's like some crazy blue fox from hell with 4 arms and emoji covering his crotch, and his fingers are blurred, like censored, and he explodes after you talk to him. It's just so weird. It's so weird. But
I'm only familiar with it by seeing the B-roll, and I was flicking through to find like, okay, when am I going to cut in? And I'm like, what is this game? Like
it's so weird.
It's so hard to describe what it's showing you on the screen is so seemingly random. And I'm like, what the hell?
But this game has fucking amazing music. It has like no hyperbole. This might be one of the best soundtracks of all time. It's that good.
All time? Jesus, that's
It is really good, yeah.
It is that good to me.
Who did the soundtrack?
I don't know the art. I did look it up, but I can't remember off the top
Barry
of my head.
Topping.
All I know is that it's so good. Like almost every track, like it's so good that they actually have dedicated buttons on the D-pad to swap the music tracks. They know that's that good. So, but this is one of the Game Pass games I will keep playing. So
Interesting.
And the next one is one that I will not keep playing. It's called The Last Kids on Earth and the Staff of Doom. So I like a few of the Game Pass games that I've played. I had no idea what this was. I installed
Diablo
it.
4?
I loaded it up, and I'm like, just impress me, basically. Like that's the whole point of this resolution, is to try new things. And if the game impresses me, then I'll keep playing it.
I can play you.
And this game did not impress me, I will say that. It is basically, to me, it's kind of not exactly the same, but it reminds me a bit of Zombies Ate My Neighbors on the Super Nintendo.
Oh, yeah.
In terms of it
That's
being
good.
top-down, reminiscent.
Okay.
I don't think it definitely hasn't got the coolness to that game. But basically, it's like a top-down action game that is kind of like, it feels like a twin stick shooter, but it's not a twin stick shooter, if that makes sense mechanically. But you've got multiple characters you can swap between, and they've got different abilities. And look, it's not horrible. It just feels really uninspired, and especially coming off the back of something like Paradise Killer, which is the most inspiring game I've probably ever played. It is harsh, but it's also a game where it just feels like there just wasn't anything. No, there was no hook. It was like the most generic song you hear on the radio, but there's no hook to it. So, very forgettable to me. And yes, it's every now and then you'll get games you don't like at Game Pass.
Yeah,
so
that's
this
fair
is
enough.
one of them. The next one is a game that is much better, called Young Souls. So this game had a bit of buzz behind it, actually, leading up to release. So it's from French studios 1P2P, or One Player, Two Player, published by, you say Dotemu. Is it? It is Dotemu, is it?
Yeah, that's how you say it, yeah.
Yeah, so published by them.
Because I always said it as .emu or something like that.
Yeah,
And then I found out, no, it's actually a French pronunciation.
So this game seems really, really cool. It's almost like a beat 'em up mixed with action RPG elements. So in the B-roll at the moment, they're exploring the hub area where you can take on quests and you can train your character like San Andreas style by doing weights and things. But gameplay wise, I haven't put a lot of time into this at all. But gameplay wise, it is very much a beat 'em up, but a lot of focus on blocking and parrying and things like that. And it seems really neat. It's got an interesting mechanic where if you play by yourself, you can swap between it's like a brother and sister character. You can swap between them on the fly, and you can outfit them with different equipment. So you can have one as like a heavy character and one as a fast character. So you can swap like mid combo between them and things like that. So some cool stuff there. As I said, like I'm pretty early on. I will get back to this game eventually. And one of the probably most unique thing about this is it's got I think a really cool art style. I think it looks great when you're playing in motion. It's probably not everyone's cup of tea when you're looking at it in stills, but I think it's very fluid and it has a really cool look to it. So Young Souls, it's a pretty neat game.
Oh, cool.
And the last game is probably my favorite of this bunch, actually, is a game called Far Changing Tides. So I was really keen to try this out because, when I'd seen the trailers and the previews, it looks really neat. And I did mention something to Integot off air at the end of last week about this that I'll get to as well. But you play as like a silent protagonist who's piloting a ship through the world. And it's like a 2.5D game, so it's like just side scroller, but almost like Inside-like in terms of how it looks and everything like that. But basically, you're piloting this ship, and you've got to make sure that it's always it's always moving. You control the different elements like the sails individually. You've got to if it gets blocked by the environment, you've got to move the stuff out of the way, complete puzzles. That's where the Inside Limbo style really comes into play, and it's really neat. It's very Wind Waker-esque in terms of when you're sailing, you're just kind of like sitting there relaxing, watching the cool landscape go by. It is a game that, at least in the early couple of hours, very serene, very laid back. But the one thing I was telling Integot last week was when I was playing, I just kept having this feeling that I'd played this before. And I'm like, is this a game? Like, did this feels like it's ripped off an idea of another game that I've played before. And I'm like, what is it? I'm so like, I couldn't escape that thought. So I looked it up, and yes, it did rip off a game. It ripped off a game called Far Lone Sails, because this game is a fucking sequel, and I didn't realize. So the feeling of me saying the thing is ripping it off, that's because it's a sequel to a game where instead of a ship, it was like a big land vehicle, and you were doing the same thing, but it was the same style of design. And at the time, I thought that game was really cool. So the fact that I always forgot that game kind of existed. But no, this game's really, really cool. I recommend it. As just with all Game Pass games, if you've got a subscription, there's nothing stopping you to give it a shot. And I think this is a really cool game. So this is Far Changing Tides. So,
Nice.
yeah.
Nice. So I have not been playing Elden Ring this week. Not touched it. I did think of going back to it shortly. I'm like, no, I'm not going to go back to it. I'm just going to let it sit, and then I don't know. I might go back to it later in the year in a lull or something like that to do more in that game because there's so much in it. But I've been continuing to play Spider-Man, which I am thoroughly enjoying. It's quite weird, like because it feels like yes, an open world game just like Elden Ring, but it feels at the same time the complete opposite of Elden Ring. Like the game does not allow you to struggle. Like that is like the biggest thing. Like there's one or two parts in the game I'm like, where the fuck am I going? Like, what's going on here? And then I swear, within 5 seconds, my character is like, man, maybe I need to go over to the left over there. And then I wait another 5 seconds, and then it actually puts like a way marker to like direct me to that spot. And you know what? I'm all for it. Like, I don't give a shit. Like, it's pretty chilled. It's fun. You know, like a hot take. It makes you feel like Spider-Man. It's just a really well executed game, like most of the Insomniac games are. But I do like Spider-Man more than, you know, some of their other things that they've done and their IP that they've worked on. One thing that I don't like, I just think I don't like this in general, like quick time events. Like it just, I don't know, they just never click with me and they just give me the shits. And like when I'm watching like a cutscene in this game, I often just put down the controller and sit back and have a drink or something. And then all of a sudden, like, the screen's like, hey, you know, you've got to press circle or else you're going to die in a second. And I have actually died because of it, because I'm like, shit, I got to go get my controller. I don't know. I'm just not a huge fan of that. But I'm up to Act 3. So it's about, I don't know, like 70-something% or maybe 80% through the game. It's like, I'm kind of at the point, I actually did so much of the side quests in this game because it's just dumb fun. Just going around collecting pigeons or going around doing stupid missions and stuff. But I kind of got a bit burnt out on that. And now I've just gone back to drill through the story. I'm not sure if I'll go do all of the stuff in the game, like collect all the suits and everything like that. Sort of see how I go. But the guys can see this, but I've also started playing Spider-Man Miles Morales, and I actually did say
at the same time. Okay.
Miles Morales again.
That's an interesting choice to play these games at the same time.
Okay, so what happened was, because I have I've got it right here actually. I've got the game case right here, right? And so I've got the PS5 Ultimate Edition that came with like Spider-Man Remastered and Miles Morales. It's like one whole thing with all the DLC, everything. And my son's like, I want to play as Black Spider-Man. Now, to be clear, it's because the cover, he's a black Spider-Man, black suit Spider-Man.
Okay.
I don't know where your mind went there, Swinny.
Okay. Look, I'm so sorry that, you know, so
he's not black anyway. He's Puerto Rican American, isn't he?
Okay. I don't know.
But like, it was actually funny playing Miles Morales because I'm amazed that people don't do this more often. Where it's like, it is just really like a reskin of Spider-Man Miles Morales, but it's sold gangbusters. It got rated really well. Like, I just feel like so many game companies are missing a trick to actually do this more often.
Well, I mean, you did have
DLCs.
No, you did have this happen a little bit in terms of, for instance, Far Cry 5 and New Dawn. You had,
but that was cool.
You had Far Cry Primal, kind of you reused the same map, but then obviously made it like in the caveman days, like Batman Arkham Origins, I think, you know. So I think this was a thing that
what
a lot of games.
Wait, Batman Arkham Origins, was that like a reskin?
Origins reused the map but changed it from Arkham City.
I've never played that one. Oh, okay.
Yeah, but look, with all these games, they change it. So it's like, I've never liked that outcry. Because it's like, okay, well, you're representing New York. I'm assuming that's what it is in.
It's New York. Yeah.
So why would you bother recreating the entire map again? You know?
It's a bit beyond that. Like, it genuinely is like they've taken that engine and the skin and everything of it, and it's like, let's change the logo of this. And there's a few tweaks, to be fair. I do like the combat system, how they've tweaked it a bit. It's probably the biggest thing that they've spent effort in. One thing that I don't like about this version, they've got a skill tree, but it's like a lock-in skill tree where you can only unlock certain skills at certain levels. So it almost forces you to go down a certain path in the skill tree. And at that point, I'm just like, why do you even have a skill tree? Just like unlock the abilities as I go. It just seems very weird. But one thing that I will say about these two games, like, I know I'm going to be in the minority here, but I actually love how short Miles Morales is. It's like a 10-hour game to beat. I think it's like 15 hours to do everything. Whereas Spider-Man Remastered is like, or, you know, Spider-Man, it's like maybe 25 hours to beat it, or like 20 hours maybe if you're pushing it, and then like 30 hours to do everything. And I'm like, I don't know. It feels way too much for me for a game like this, in my opinion, but, you know, it's just my opinion. So, and outside of that, been playing a lot of Mario Kart stuff. So played Super Circuit, so that's the Game Boy Advance Mario Kart on the Analog Pocket, because I am now working in the city again. So I'm taking a portable in, and I'm like, you know what, I'll bring my Pocket. And it was really cool. It was like, it's just such a cool device for that kind of stuff. And I don't want to spoil a potential tier list here, but I don't know, I just cannot get into Super Circuit. I didn't grow up with Super Circuit. I didn't have it when I was a kid. But I just find it really... I don't know, it's a bit Mario Kart 64-ish. I'm just not, I don't know, it's just not my favorite. It's not my favorite.
Well, think about when this came out, you know, like it wasn't my favorite Mario Kart when it came out, but I played it when it came out, and it did always have that feeling of it is a bit of a weird Mario Kart.
Yeah.
But I looked at it more as, hey, this is what Super Mario Kart could be with a bit more power behind it, basically. In terms of I know the Super Nintendo and Game Boy Advance, like, you know, they're pretty comparable in that regard, but it obviously it feels more 3D than Super Mario Kart ever did. So
yeah, definitely. But I don't like the way it actually handles. It's a little bit like a bad version of Mario Kart 64, which, like, I'm not a big fan of the way that game handles either. The other one is I've been playing Mario Kart Live Home Circuit, so that's the one, the, you know, AR one.
It's really cool.
I always go back to that. That is like such, like, honestly, if you have like kids and they're like, I don't know, under 6, it's such a cool thing. Like, because they love it. It's like kind of magical, you know, because they can see it on the Switch, and then they see it as like they go around, and then my son like chases Mario around the house and stuff. It's really awesome.
is that eligible for the tier list?
Oh yeah, 100%.
That should be, yeah.
Definitely.
Just checking.
Oh, and I'll tell you what, it's going to be ranked higher than some of these games, maybe even the Game Boy Advance games.
I just wasn't sure, like, because, you know, I know there's the game component, but also it's like also half a toy as well. So I was like,
yeah,
okay.
no,
But
definitely.
no, that's fair enough. That's fair enough.
Like, because I'm like maybe 80-90% chance of going to Japan this year. I will be playing the VR Mario Kart in Japan.
You know what I've
hell
gotta do?
or high water. Yeah, what?
I've got to do a Mario Kart tier list before then, just so.
Well, it's not a valid one. It's not a valid one because you won't have Mario Kart VR. I'll just come over the top of you.
Because
The one true.
Every tier list on the internet always includes every possible game.
Wait,
you know?
honestly, it should. If you're saying I'm going to rank all the Mario Kart games, you rank all the Mario
I
Kart
think
games.
you both should do a tier list of the Mario Kart games, and then I'll do a tier list of your 2 tier lists to rank whether Swinny or
one's S tier or A
integot.
tier.
See which tier they go to. Tierception.
The last thing I wanted to rant about is freaking hell, the DualSense battery sucks so much.
Tell me more about that.
It's so bad. Like, what the hell's wrong with this, like, battery? Is
Well,
it
hang on,
defective? It's crazy.
Well, no, hold up. So 2 things. One, I used to actually have an issue where, honestly, 2 hours or something tops and it would drain.
Yeah, no,
Somehow
it's not
it
that
fixed
bad.
itself, so it's not that bad. Then I noticed while playing Elden Ring, oh man, I have to charge this thing here and there. So whenever I put it to rest mode,
Well, you're
sometimes
playing
I have to
100
do it.
hours.
But then I'm like, wait, I played 100 hours in this. What the hell
45
do I
cycles.
expect? And if I actually sit down and think about it, maybe I updated it 12. Sorry, maybe I plugged it in 12 times, let's say, 15 times tops. And the number of times that I did it, I'm getting close to maybe 7-8 hours out of it.
Which is bad, man.
Well, I don't know. How much do you really get out of, say, AAA batteries? Is it that much
I don't
more?
know. What's
I
it
don't
got to do
know.
with anything? That's such a weird statement.
Well, no, because I'm trying to compare it to, say, the Xbox controller.
No, I that's one thing before you jump in, Swinny. Like,
know.
I'm coming from the Pro controller on the Switch, which is ridiculous. It's like 40-hour.
Oh, okay.
So that's my mind.
I don't use that enough
so
to
it's
know.
like,
Right, okay,
it's like
gotcha.
shocking how much I
Pretty much never have to charge
have to
it.
charge this every single time.
I reckon I'm probably getting about 20 hours out of the Elite controller.
Okay, so that's a lot less. Do you have any of the actual controls enabled? As in, so do you have the vibrations, things like that over
It's
the
all
top?
stock. I don't change anything. I think that's what it is, because I think with Elden Ring, I didn't notice it, and I was playing that a lot, right? And big sessions. But I think the thing is with Spider-Man Remastered, I've noticed that whenever you're swinging, whenever you're doing things, it's always like rumbling a little bit.
Yeah, it'd be the rumble. 100%.
It's always like
that is the most
kind of
power by far, I
activating
reckon.
a little bit, like even in really weird ways that I find. I don't know. It's kind of almost immersion breaking. I don't even think it's like that good dual sense. I think it's super overrated. Just like when the Switch had, HD rumble
yeah.
or whatever. I'm like,
It's like-
weird.
who gives a
it's
shit
like-
about HD rumble?
No, it's like anything. Like you've got to have people that actually use it properly. You know.
But they don't, and that's what I said at the start when it
Yeah.
launched, right? Like no one's going to take advantage of it, and they haven't.
So GTA, for example, I forgot to mention it because I didn't play it enough to really put it as what have we played. But I think 2 weeks ago, whenever it came out on PS5, the updated version of
Did you
it.
buy it again?
Of course I did. I've got every copy under the sun of it.
Didn't you talk like a month ago that you just rebought GTA 5 and now you bought another version?
Yeah, I bought it on PC by mistake again.
Again, wait, again.
God.
No. So I bought it on PC.
Yeah, I know
Because
you
I
bought it
didn't want
twice.
to go
We've
through the
spoken about
Rockstar
it, yeah.
client. Yeah, so the whole thing.
That's
So-
wait, hang on. Sorry, that's not true. You bought it again because you didn't know if you had it.
No, I bought it again because I knew I had it, but I had it through the Rockstar client. And I'm
okay.
like, I don't want to try to figure out my details and all that bullshit. I'll get it through the, I think it
that's
was the
true.
Epic
Yeah,
Store
I
or
remember
something
that. Yeah.
for $8
That's
or
true.
whatever the fuck it was. I'm like, I'll do anything
Then
to
it
avoid having to
activates
find my...
through
And then it goes
Rockstar.
and it needs Rockstar anyway, you piece of shit. So anyway, so I got it on PS5 and they did a really good implementation of it, including the fact that your mobile phone comes through the actual controller. So whenever you go to use a
that's why you
mobile
need to buy
phone and
it.
you can use it with it all the voice, and if you're interacting with someone on the mobile phone, like if I only did sort of the first mission with Franklin and
Yeah. Anyway,
Lamar and stuff, and they're chatting on the phone, and it actually comes through the thing, and that is really cool. That's actually a really cool use of it.
Thank God it's GTA 5, not GTA 4. Otherwise, your controller would just be like, cousin, let's go bowling.
Let's go bowling. Yeah, exactly. So I reckon they did a really good job of the way they've implemented it, which is weird, given that it's such a freaking old game that came out way before this tech was out, and they actually implemented it some of the best out of all the games. So, yeah.
no, interesting. Yeah, look, I think it might be just a Spider-Man thing because I didn't notice it as much with Elden Ring.
I
but
think it's the
really annoying.
rumble, but again, it's still it is pretty low
No, fair enough.
compared
All
to some of the other controllers.
Let's jump straight into the news, and there's some big stories this week. And with our first story, we have, after months of rumors and reports, Sony has finally revealed the details of its new PlayStation subscription service called PlayStation Plus.
What?
Plus.
Plus.
That would have been awesome if they said
Ultra
PlayStation Plus Plus.
XP.
Plus.
Or if it had plus and then the plus symbol after the plus.
Turbo.
The new service combines elements of the existing PS Plus and PS Now service with 3-ish tiers available. And it will begin rolling out in June, starting in Asian markets. I still don't, I double checked. I'm not sure what Asian markets. I tried to find that.
Still
And
counts.
I don't think we can find what Asian markets they're referring to at this stage.
What, Japan and
And from June, PS Now will be discontinued as a standalone service. So the 3-ish tiers are PS Plus Essential, which is essentially what you have now. So it's the same price, the same
nice pun.
games, 2 games at least, an online multiplayer game, cloud storage, discounts. If you want to play online, you need this tier. The second tier is PS Plus Extra, which is about $15 a month, and will add 400 PS4 and PS5 games, which you can download to your console and play. And then finally, this is where...
Sorry, I'll just say up to, like, I don't know, will they have them on launch?
Well, up
Wow.
to
That amount?
They haven't even...
up
they
to
have-
10,000.
Okay, all right, I'll let you go.
guys.
Sorry, I'll let you go.
Well, let's talk about it at the end of when we talk about the 3rd-ish tier. So the 3rd-ish tier, 3A, is the PS Plus Premium. So they're in markets where they have PS Now, which is going to be about 160 Australian dollars a year, 120 US dollars, so $10 a month US, which is all the things above. And then also it will add up to 340 PS3, PS2, PS1, and PSP games, with the caveat that PS3 games will be streaming. Whereas the PS1, PS2, PSP games are going to be available via download or stream. And when we say about streaming, you can also play on the PC, which is pretty cool.
Just with that, do we know if the PS1, PS2, PSP, it's either or sometimes in one, some might be streaming, some might be download and streaming. That's what I'm saying. Like, maybe there might be some that are actually just streaming. We don't know.
I think all of them, like from memory around PS Now, all of them you can download from memory. Or like that's how they've set it up in the past. Okay. It's a bit weird, like the whole history of it, because some of them you could rent or you could buy on the service as well, which is really odd. I think they're just trying to clean the whole thing up, obviously, is what they're doing right now.
Good.
Because no one remembers. They also are going to add, which is interesting, time-limited demos as part of something you buy, which is interesting. Now, where it gets weird, especially very relevant in Australia, is the third tier has a kind of slightly different tier to it, which is 3B, which is PS Plus Deluxe. So not quite premium, it's deluxe.
What?
And it will be in
better than
markets
deluxe?
where there isn't PS Now, which is Australia, which is us. So for non-streaming markets. So it will be a lower price. We don't know what that price is. And it will have PS1, PS2, PSP games for download and play, limited time, limited game trials, but absolutely no PS3 games, game streaming, game downloading, game anything. It does not exist. 60 gig
PS3 somewhere I can use for that. I could play PS3. Sorry.
Now, in terms of
I could play PS3 games.
Now, in terms of what games are going to be available, given that extra tier, which will have the PS4, PS5 games, they've already confirmed that Death Stranding, God of War, Spider-Man Miles Morales, MK11, and Returnal will be available in those extra premium. Wait, is it in the extra? Oh, yeah. Extra premium and deluxe tiers.
Nice.
So and I will say I made an assumption on the deluxe one because it's basically premium minus the PS3.
Yeah, definitely is the case. Yeah. And did you want to read this quote from Jim Ryan that we think is quite critical?
Sure. We felt like we are in a good virtuous cycle with
maybe not in that voice.
Okay, Mike, first of all, can we just say it's regarding the fact that they won't have Sony first party titles on day one in the service.
As Xbox Game Pass has.
Yeah, so which look, honestly, most of us probably expected. But Mike, like, if you're going to read it seriously, feel free to read it.
All right. We feel like we are in a good virtuous cycle with the studios where the investment delivers success, which enables yet more investment, which delivers yet more success. We like that cycle, and we think our games like that cycle. Gamers. Putting our own games into the service, or any of our services, upon their release, as you well know, this is not a road that we've gone down in the past. And it's not a road that we're going to go down with this new service. We feel that if we were to do that with the games that we make at PlayStation Studios, that virtuous cycle will be broken. The level of investment that we need to make in our studios would not be possible. And we think the knock-on effect of the quality of the games that we make would not be something the gamers want.
Which translation, what does that mean, Swinny?
Basically, they make too much money.
Yeah, we like money.
We like money.
And we believe gamers like that we make money. And they have to pay extra for something they could get for free. Like, what gamer would be happy to pay extra if they didn't have to? That makes zero sense.
Totally 0 cents. I want to pay for my stuff.
So I'm disappointed. So Jim Ryan, he's Irish, is he?
Oh, well, now I gotta read the whole thing
that's
again.
What I was just saying. You gotta do it in an Irish accent now.
I gotta...
He does not talk like that at all. He does not talk like that. He's the one who's like, who wants to play Gran Turismo 4 now that we have Gran Turismo Sport? No one will ever play that game ever again.
Okay, let's
have to go back to Sport because I don't want to play.
All right, let's open up the
Ryan.
Let's open up the batting. Integot, what are your thoughts on this as an Aussie gamer with a PS5? What do you think of this?
Look, I think the PS1, PS2, PSP stuff is very, very cool. But it does strike me as super lazy by Sony ultimately. Like, the challenge, I guess, that they're always going to have with the PS3 is it probably... I can understand the economics. I reckon for them to build an emulator that will work on the PS5. The PS5 is powerful enough to do it, but the amount of R&D that they'd have to put into it, they probably did the maths and just said, we're not going to make any money doing this. Now, I think that's like a shitty thing to do. I think it's like they've looked at it, assessed it, and said, nah, it's not worth it because we're not actually going to make money out of this process, so we won't do it. But I feel like that was the one thing, if they delivered, if they said to people, like, it would have, like, the way I would have structured the presentation is, you can download PS3 games as part of this subscription and play them without streaming. That's it. Like, mic drop, right? Like, walk away. People would have been so hyped for it. Whereas it just feels very reactive to Game Pass, very defensive, very uncreative. And for me, it's like there's a lot of great, obviously, PS1, PS2 games, but it's like, which ones are they talking about? Like, we don't know. Like, people are making assumptions. Yeah, it's all the PS Now stuff. PS Now has got more games than this. So games are going to go, and we don't know which ones are going to go and which ones are going to stay. And if you look at how they launched the PlayStation Classic, it's like, yeah, there was some really good games on there, but it was very haphazard and very lazy and, like, not much focus. So it's super underwhelming for me. I honestly don't see myself going beyond Essential. But I feel like we're going to get destroyed in the PS Plus Essential category. Like, I just cannot see them putting good games in there now. When they have to then decide, you know, when they had Final Fantasy VII Remake and they put it as part of PS Plus? I feel like there's just zero chance they would do that, like, as part of PS Plus Essential. They'd be like, oh, hey, great, like, Final Fantasy VII Remake is now part of PS Plus Extra. Right? Like, it just, you know what I mean? Because they've got these tiers, it's just like, I just can't see them doing it. So it's like, it's shit news for me, honestly.
Just look at what happened with Games of Gold. You know, that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, great example, right? Like, that's trash now, right? So, like, you know what? Honestly, I think where I'll end up landing is maybe just getting rid of all, like, online with PlayStation. I wouldn't be shocked because I don't use it as a multiplayer system. So, but how about you,
You're gonna
Mike?
miss out on. Well, so currently in the last year or so of having the $80 subscription with PlayStation, the only real benefit I've had from it is countless messages saying "try finger butthole"
in Elden Ring.
Ring. Because without it, I wouldn't be able to see them. So, you know, $80 well spent, I say.
You got the Uchi katana that I sent you?
That's right.
Wouldn't be able to do that.
Uchi, which, by the way, I have actually used. Dual Uchi bleeding katanas,
Uchi,
fantastic.
baby.
So worth the $80 investment I put in PlayStation Plus. Look, all jokes aside, that is the thing. I paid $80 for this service, and I just don't get anything out of it. I don't think I play online enough. I keep forgetting to get the free games. Again, because I just don't play online enough and stuff like that. Cloud saves, useful, I guess. You almost feel like that should be something that, you know, it's part of a service, just like anything else. But so personally, if I could pay just a little bit extra and actually get a catalog of a bunch of different games, I probably would do that. I'd probably do that like it is with Game Pass. I know we differ on this one, integot, but I think Game Pass is an amazingly good value. You know, especially when you get discounts and it's like $50 a year or something. It's just nuts the amount of stuff you can get for that. We'll probably get discounts for this as well, I'm assuming.
Don't know.
So if you can then get a catalog to all these games for $100 bucks,
They've not confirmed a discount.
They haven't, but I'm just saying
I was saying that's one of the things people are annoyed about is that because even if they, considering the cost of new PS5 games, if they did get a discount as part of this, then there would be a definite value for that. But the fact that they haven't announced that is very telling. So I just want to clarify that.
I think that they've said that if you've got PS Now, they're going to convert it, right? Haven't they?
No, I meant more if you
I know,
don't
if you're
go
getting
directly
PS
through
Plus,
them,
yeah,
you
I
go
know.
through JB Hi-Fi or something.
Yeah,
They've got a sale on, use vouchers, whatever. You could probably get it down to, you know, $100 for the Plus Extra or something per year.
I'm talking about game discounts, like if you wanted to buy a game outright. So maybe we're talking about different things.
Right, okay, talking about that now. Probably different things. So look, to me, I kind of, I feel it's inevitable. I mean, I feel The two big competing players are PlayStation and Xbox now, and for Xbox to offer that service and entice people with it, and for PlayStation to not have that and basically just give you two okay-ish games every month, which is what Xbox were doing years ago, they're going to have to do that. It doesn't surprise me at all that they had to do something like this. Now, when it comes to, as you were saying, what happens with this tiered process, it's a tricky one from, and you know, Swinny, from a marketing perspective, you're probably also in a good position to talk about it, because you do have to be cognizant of the fact that you have these multiple tiers, so you can't offer the lower tier all the good stuff, because then people aren't going to jump onto the middle tier or the higher tier. But then if you don't offer good enough stuff in the lower tier, people aren't even going to go into that ecosystem to begin with. So yeah, working at PlayStation right now, trying to figure this shit out, I wouldn't want to be those guys to try to balance it right, but I guess time will tell how that would work. What do you think, Swinny?
Look, there's some stuff to like about this, but there's also, as Integot was saying, there's a lot about it that is very underwhelming, especially as an Australian gamer. Now, the whole day one thing, it makes so much business sense for Sony to not include any of their first party. So I think it's a very smart business decision. And they've also not... So Microsoft kind of put their foot in it by making that commitment where every game is, so they don't even have a way out. Whereas Sony, if at any point they could choose to have a game launch in there, and they could, at one out of maybe their 10 games launches, and they've got the ability to do that because from the beginning they haven't said it's a thing, so they've got the freedom to do that. In terms of the actual tiers and everything, I'm not a current PS Plus subscriber, even though I did get a PS5 last year, just because I just haven't had a reason to get it as of yet. And reading the interview with Jim Ryan had with GamesIndustry.biz, which is where he was quoted from, he's mentioning that, you know, they are also looking to convert people that do not have a current PlayStation Plus thing. And I look at this, and it is a hard sell for me in Australia because the PS3 is such a huge part of that
number
library.
one that you would have wanted.
It's crazy, and I'm definitely interested in the PS1, and like I never had a PSP, so there's a lot of games there. But Integot was saying this, like they haven't told us anything about the games. How could I even look at? Oh, it's worthwhile spending that amount of money, because it's quite a bit of money to get access to those older PlayStation games when I don't know what's there. I can make assumptions that, oh look, they'll probably have some Sony stuff there, you know, but it's like, what about like all the JRPGs I've never played? Are they going to be in there, you know? And sure, I could go and look at PS Now lists, but as you said, like that stuff doesn't even line up numbers wise. So it just feels weird for me for them to announce this and not even give any indication of what value there is, and from a game library standpoint for that tier. So I am interested in this, but it will really depend on that library of games and what's in there.
Yeah, I feel like I've just realized I have an issue. I'm the weird one.
Just one.
I've got an issue with with, you know, these type of services. Like even Netflix gives me the shits now, because it's like, oh, I want to go watch this movie. Oh no, it's on Stan, which is like an Australian specific streaming service for Americans and other people who are not in Australia. And it's like, oh fuck, I don't want to go subscribe to them as well. Like it just becomes, it's way worse than, it's
really segregated.
Honestly, I feel like it's now worse than cable and how it was before. Like you just get Foxtel, go, okay, I just deck out, get the ultra platinum friggin' thing, get anything I want, right? Now it's like, oh, I gotta get Disney Plus, oh, I gotta get this, and
that's a really good point. It's something I forgot to mention. I'll make quick because I just cut you off. Is as a person who plays mainly on Xbox and having the two consoles, like I can barely play the stuff that's on Game Pass.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But it's funny because, you know, previously people would say the opposite. There's just no choice. I wish there was more choice and be more competitive. There should be more players in the market. So there's clearly a balancing act in all of this with everything.
Yeah.
Too much choice, and oh my god, it's too segregated. I got to go to a million different. Same as on PC. I got to get the Epic launcher. I got to get the Rockstar launcher. I got to get Blast Team, GOG, and not enough. And fuck, they've got a monopoly on it, so they're charging too much. Yada yada yada. It's hard to find that balance. I think. with the streaming stuff like Stan, it'd be really useful if there was something that aggregated all of that stuff somehow. You know, it can't happen,
Like
but
a
it'd
box,
be nice.
a cable.
Well, maybe like a cable box.
You have one remote. And yeah.
Well, it's funny you say that because Amazon kind of actually do that. Somewhat related to this because you can actually play games on it as well. But I got the Fire Stick about a month ago, only because I wanted to play Apple stuff. And I didn't want to buy an Apple TV because it was more expensive. And the Fire Stick was like $50 for the 4K one. They had it on special. So I put it in there, logged into my Apple thing. You got to stream it off your phone to the Fire Stick. So it's a bit of a convoluted process, but it works perfectly fine through it. And then I could buy a movie that was only available through Apple for whatever reason. I don't remember if it's probably through some other streaming services that I didn't want to get as well. And then you could stream it through the Fire Stick. And then the Fire Stick has Paramount Plus. It's got a bunch of other ones that you can stream through it. So it kind of does that. It kind of aggregates a bunch of that stuff, which is kind of cool. So yeah, cool. There are some solutions to it.
Cool story, bro.
Well, I think it might be relevant to people that have an issue with a billion different streaming services. Get a Fire Stick.
You can see the episode title, Amazon Fire Stick. It's going to be the biggest takeaway from this episode. Yeah, no, like the whole disaggregation is getting really annoying now. Yeah, look, I got to wait till it comes out to see if I'm going to actually subscribe or not. I think the biggest thing is I hate the monthly pricing, but it's weird that they've still got yearly pricing for this. Like, I totally understand where Microsoft's going, where it's like you can only pay monthly. That makes sense to me, right? Like in terms of a business sense.
No, but you can do it yearly.
Yeah, I know, but they're removing. Microsoft's getting rid of all of like as many avenues as possible to get rid of the annual stuff. You can see that. I reckon in a year's time there wouldn't be no way to get annual stuff.
Because a lot of people, break
do what I do,
paying $50 a year or something. Yeah.
And the last thing I wanted to say on this is that when PS Now released, there was like a bit of a trick. You could get it for really cheap. And you could stack it, and there would seem to be no limit. So people have got it stacked to 2040, right? And the theory that people have is because PS Now is pretty much this with PS Plus and stuff, there may be a 1-for-1 translation to premium, which would be amazing. Like some of these people might have that for like till 2040. I actually hope for them. That'll be hilarious if that actually pans out. So we'll see how that goes. But yeah, like fairly underwhelming for me, but yeah, very underwhelming, I think, for Australians. But let's get into more happy news. And it's the announcement that the highly anticipated sequel to The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild has unfortunately been delayed until 2023.
I don't know how to react now, because you said, let's get on to happy...
Spider-Man.
Whoa, what the hell? Wow,
the
Zelda,
haven't been updated. So yeah, like I was very sad about this. So announced in June 2019... Nintendo went radio silent on the game until last year's E3, where they showed off the game in a full trailer and then dated it as 2022. But Aonuma came out on YouTube recently and apologized.
Was it YouTube? I thought it was Twitter. Maybe it was YouTube.
There was a YouTube video, and yeah, it would have been on Twitter.
Okay, all right, yeah.
And then said, the game is... We played Elden Ring, and now we have to delay the game for 5 years to be able to compete. But yeah, like I don't know what. Yeah, as someone who doesn't love Breath of the Wild, how did this hit you, Swinny? Did you care? Did you?
It just made me realize it's going to be even longer before I can play a Zelda game I'll probably enjoy, which will be the game after this.
Oh God, you never know. To be fair.
No, this game will probably appeal more to me if they take on the feedback and dungeons and stuff,
and weapons that don't break.
Well, no, but that's the thing is I think they will retain a lot of that elements because that's stuff that is kind of almost integral to the Breath of the Wild experience. So, yeah, that's my take. Is that look, I'm really disappointed for people obviously looking forward to this, which is a hell of a lot of people. I will say I'm not surprised by the news at all. Not that Nintendo delay stuff all the time, but this felt like a very uneasy 2022. So.
Yeah, and I could be a dickhead and go back to the old footage, but I think I actually said I don't think it'll be 2022.
Oh, you did, yeah.
And there was one time where they actually removed it from their calendar, and they had Splatoon 3, they had all these other games, but they didn't have Breath of the Wild 2. And I'm like, this game is not coming out. Like they've seen that and just said nah. And my fear is I don't think it's coming out. Like, it might not come out next year until the end of next year. Because if you go back to Breath of the Wild, they delayed the hell out of that game as well. And I think everyone kind of had speculated that, oh, it's because the Switch was coming, so they wanted to line it up, which I thought as well. But the more I think about it now, it's like maybe it's just like they're just bad at estimating how long it's going to take to make these games. So
I don't know why they even bother. They should just do Rockstar. Yeah, it's out when it's out. Shut the fuck up until then. It's out when it's out.
I think they have investors because when this news hit, Nintendo's share price dropped by 6%. So I think updating the market.
That's why I mean they shouldn't
critical.
have said it in the first place. They should just kept their mouth shut. And then when they know that it's definitely coming out in say 3 to 6 months or something, let's say, or when they hit gold, then they go, hey, we're gonna launch this in 3 months.
I think a 3-month announcement for a Zelda release date is a bit much, but I know what you're saying. Like
it works with GTA. And it's one of the biggest franchises in the
GTA
world.
has also got GTA Online, right? So they don't even need to worry. Well, GTA Online Plus now, right?
Yeah, but what are they worried about? It's not like people are going to forget about Zelda and then in 5 years' time go, what the fuck is Zelda?
People want to have a hype. People want to like get excited.
Well,
People
they can get excited. They know it's coming. Come on. They know there's going to be a sequel. They know there's going to be a new game in the franchise. It's you know.
You're very passionate about this,
guarantee.
Mike. Like this is this is the most passionate I've heard you on the podcast in like a year.
Because I think all of these release date things are hyping people up, are setting bad expectations. I think you should just shut the hell up about it. When you're ready to actually give something to the world, then you do it. People aren't going to sit there and nag you about it. People aren't going to sit there and cry because they haven't heard the release date of an upcoming Zelda that they don't even know about. They know it's going to come eventually.
Me? This is the gaming fandom.
Yeah. Well,
people aren't going to nag you about it.
Touch some grass.
What do you mean people aren't going to nag you about it?
grass.
Oh my god, man! That's all people do. When's this coming out? When's the news? When's Metro Prime 4?
Yeah, I wish I had a worm of like approval, disapproval, because you had me for a while and then it went straight down. Like I fundamentally,
you know what I mean, right?
I do agree with you. Like I've said it a few times. I don't understand why people need to long date games because they keep just delaying them. And it puts pressure on everyone. I think internally you can go, this is the date, and we want to hit it because of our financials.
Totally.
And
Yeah,
stuff.
yeah. There's a whole lot of reasons.
So yeah, look, I don't necessarily disagree with you, but yeah, this game, man, like I'm kind of glad, I must admit, because now it's removed the thing of me having to decide between Elden Ring and Breath of the Wild 2 as the game of the year for me. Like that was the first thing I thought. I was like, thank fuck it's moved. Because I know in my heart that I don't know. I almost might not want to pick. I might just go, fuck both. I'm going to say they're both number one. But you would love this as well. They did actually reveal a little bit more of the game, Swinny. And you know how you love how there's weapon degradation. They show off a destroyed Master Sword that Link's holding in the video, which I loved so much because I'm like, you're like, at least they could just make the Master Sword not get annoyed or destroyed or whatever or nerfed. And they've like destroyed it in this game. It's almost like a fuck you, Swinny game. Kind of love it. But yeah, like one thing I wanted to say, Swinny, is I feel like this is going to force their hand because they pretty much always want to release a Zelda game every year in some form or another. It's surely going to force their hand to release, you know, like Wind Waker HD on the Switch or not Phantom Hourglass, or Twilight Princess HD on the Switch remastered.
It's such an easy win for them, you know. They can drop it probably at any time.
And you know they could just
cow.
They don't even need to do it as a twin pack. They could just literally just do one, and I'm gonna buy it.
I know, charge $80,
and I'm gonna buy it. I know.
Yeah, heaps of people would buy it.
I'm sick. I know. Oh god, I can see it right now.
Release new amiibo with
Nah, they'll probably just do the Wolf Link amiibo. That's a pretty damn cool amiibo. I already got that.
I've still got that in the box.
That's a cool amiibo. All right, moving on. So, fresh off the release of their game Soul Ash, Heart Machine have revealed a follow-up to their critically acclaimed Hyperlight Drifter titled Hyper Light Breaker. Swinny, you want to take the rest away?
Yeah, so we kind of mentioned this last week that they Heart Machine teased for the 6th anniversary of Hyperlight Drifter. They were making a big announcement, and I said I hope it's a sequel. Kind of got my wish because this isn't really being positioned as a sequel. It's more like it's a follow-up. It's set in the same universe, and obviously it's called Hyperlight Breaker, but This isn't Hyper Light Drifter 2 for many reasons. First of all, the original, which came out on a whole bunch of stuff like PC, PS4, Xbox One, and got a Switch port later, was like a top-down, almost Zelda-like action-adventure game with really cool, mysterious world, amazing music by Disaster Piece. It was just a really, really cool,
the music.
very
So
acclaimed.
good.
This is nothing like that in terms of visual style. So this is actually a 3D title. It still has like visual elements of the Hyperlight world, but it's also not like a single player action adventure. Although by all accounts you could probably play it single player, it is being positioned as an online co-op game that is a roguelite as well, but it does have permanent upgrades. So this news is really interesting. I think they're very smart to not call this Hyper Light Drifter 2, because if they did that and then did this, like,
that's true.
It's a different game.
To me, this is actually an interesting way, whether or not I like the output, to build the world. Like Solar Ash was a 3D game, so they've now got experience, and they've talked before about Solar Ash going from 2D to 3D was a real tough jump for them, and now they've done it. They've got the engine and experience. They can now work on this game, and it will just branch out, and it will further get the reach of their Hyperlight world. And Solar Ash, by all accounts, is also set in the same universe as well. I still got to play that game. But yeah, so I'm in two minds. Like, I'm not a big roguelite fan, but there's obviously some hugely popular games in the genre. Your Dead Cells, your Hades,
Heaps
a
of
whole
games,
bunch
heaps
of
of
games,
games.
Binding of Isaac and all
It's
that.
almost ridiculous. It's almost like the Metroidvania, right, thing. It's getting too crazy.
And yeah, but so it's really wait and see. This is a while away. They are
It's next year, right?
launching it early access next year. So but Hades did the early access thing really well. So it's not that, I don't think that's a downer at all. Although I'm the kind of person who generally doesn't like to play games until they're like at the 1.0 full release myself. And this isn't being self-published. This is actually being published by Gearbox. So they're kind of stepping up in the world. Heart Machine, I think it's a great announcement. Hyper Light Drifter is one. It was very acclaimed, but it also is still, to me, it is still a bit of a cult game. Like, it probably deserved even more
A lot of people
recognition.
haven't played it.
Yeah, a fantastic game. This looks cool, although I just don't know how cool it looks yet.
Hyper Light Drifter is a very cool game that, if it was published by like Microsoft or Sony, and kind of had that tag on it as a sort of indie, like similar to Journey and things like that, it would have been massive. I think, just how it executed. Like, a little deep dive, because you were talking about the engines. This game and then the next game, the original game, we're going to talk about in a second, both were made on Game Maker Studio. And they both have now moved off that and moved into 3D games. And like, honestly, I'm going to say it in the next segment as well, but I'm not really like, I don't know. I feel like, the beauty of doing something in 2D and, something stripped back is that you can have a dozen people or like 5 people or 6 people and do it at such a high level that you look at it and you go, wow, this looks amazing. But then when you move into a territory like 3D, now you're competing with like the big boys. Now it's like, I'm sorry, I'm comparing it to, the Horizon, Forbidden West, the Elden Rings and stuff like that, because that's just what you do naturally. No, but it's like a natural thing, right? And it, to me, just doesn't stack up so far. But we haven't seen too much, and I'm going to say this about the next game as well. But
we'll see. I mean, I'm not a game developer, but I would also assume there are some advantages to 3D. Very correct. Pixel art it's not an easy thing to do, to actually do all the animations and everything for pixel art. I don't know if it's easy to do a full game in 3D, but there's certain things that are much easier to do, I think, in 3D than 2D.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The only thing is, I remember playing Risk of Rain and then playing Risk of Rain 2, which also made the transition from memory from 2D to 3D. And I just liked something about the 2D I just enjoyed more. I don't know what it is.
It's interesting because a lot of people hold that up as an example of a successful transition, even though
it was. But
even though a lot of people initially didn't actually like the 3D move, I think that eventually got to the point where people were like, hey, this is actually an example of how an indie studio can successfully make that move. But it's interesting that your initial reaction was definitely
it worked, but I wasn't. a huge
Yeah,
fan
yeah.
of it, if that makes sense.
You must have a
Yeah.
fit then. You're on fire in this episode. Yeah, no. So like a game that you're likely to jump on, Swinny, or you want to see more info?
I'd
I
play
want
with
to
you.
see more info because if it turns out it is really roguelite-y. You know, it gets to take a lot to get me to play a game.
Hades,
like that.
basically. Yeah.
And
The Hades is
I-
awesome, man.
I
Like,
need
have
to-
you gone
it
back to
is.
Hades, Swinny?
honestly, I need to play Solar Ash first. So,
okay.
Because that'll probably give me a better indication of where they're at in terms of 3D games and stuff. So.
What's your Hades update, by the way, Swinny? Did you bounce off that game?
No, I've barely played that game.
Damn. Okay.
I
I
will
love
hope-
that game, man.
I do hope to play it one day, but there's just too many games.
If there's one roguelite, it's that one.
Oh, it's so good. I give you credit on one thing, Swinny, like the Hyperlight Drifter, and then I was like, why don't they just call it the Hyperlight Drifter 2? But I take your point. I think you're right.
Different game.
I much
probably.
prefer when games just say Hyperlight Drifter 2. Like it's simple to me, but
Well, if it's a proper sequel, but
it's
a
different.
completely
It's
different
almost
game,
like a
yeah.
spin-off. So yeah, it does make sense. All right, we'll talk about a game that is a sequel, and it is titled as a sequel. Thank you. So as part of their April Fool's Day, now fourth in a row, annual Rivals Direct event, Aether Studios have fully revealed the sequel to their indie hit platform fighter, Rivals of Aether. So Rivals of Aether 2, which will be coming in 2024 on as many platforms as possible. So the first game came out in 2017 for PC and Xbox, and later came out on the Switch. The 3D sequel was teased back on April Fool's last year. The trailer showed off a new 3D art style with some returning characters. It will introduce some more traditional Smash Bros. Mechanics such as shielding, grabbing, and ledges. It will not have Steam Workshop support on launch, but may get it sometime after. It will be a closed beta in 2023, and a new spin-off game has also been announced called Dungeons of Aether, which was shown off, which is due out later this year. Swinny, as the resident Smash Bros. Expert, the champion platform fighter, how did this trailer hit you?
Why are you throwing me so early? I was looking something up about this game. No,
You can throw it to me if you want.
doesn't
I
like
am-
these games.
I am the wrong person
It's like
to.
a full-on clone.
I am the wrong person. Well, it's a platform fighter, Mike.
I
I'm the wrong person to talk about this because I never got heavily into the first game. I did try it out. I do actually have it on Xbox. I actually find it quite funny on their official FAQs, which are really funny about this game. They say, "Oh, what is it?" And it's a sequel to to the first game, an indie fighting game you pick up on Steam or Switch. Man, the Xbox version mustn't have done well for them to just completely admit that in their official FAQs.
That's awesome.
Look,
That's
this
awesome.
I honestly, while I don't think the 3D it looks a bit rough at the moment, I actually think it appeals more to me than the 2D style of the original. But in saying that, this game, I mean, we know it's still so early.
Yeah.
I have been, I've made it clear in the past that with platform fighters, it's almost like Smash Brothers is, to me, it's like that's all I need, and it's a tough sell to get me to play any other game, just because, while Smash Brothers is almost like an endless supply of enjoyment in that area.
It's hard to plumb that game completely, right? Because there's just so many characters.
But this has always been the first game was always the one that looked like the most fun to me out of all the, I guess, Smash clones.
Yeah, I think so too.
It always looked the most, like, it looked more unique. Now, by all accounts, they actually are bringing more Smash mechanics into this version, which is interesting. They're almost making it more of a clone, but I think they justify it in their FAQs. Like, for instance, they're adding shielding and grabbing and ledge hanging, which I didn't know wasn't in the first game. So
No,
that's
it's not.
interesting. Yeah. So they're obviously looking to really draw more people over, especially with Smash being wrapped up now from a content standpoint. So
I think it's also because it's way much. It's getting really close to Melee, right? Like this game, like Rivals 2, I should say. Rivals of Aether, like I really like the art style because it's so distinct. It's very 2D. It's super well animated, and not to say I think the 3D animation looks amazing in this game. It's just, again, like the point that I had in the other segment. It's like I'm gonna start comparing it to Smash Brothers now because it's like trying to look like Smash Brothers Ultimate, and I'm like, I think Smash Brothers Ultimate looks way better, and it's like Mario, dude, right?
Yeah.
Like you're gonna struggle to get me. So
In the footage they've shown so far, this game, while it's very early, looks way better in motion than still screenshots. So,
it looks really
definitely.
well
It
animated.
actually looks really
Animation-wise,
good, yeah.
Yeah, it's just and with the mechanics getting more complex, to me, it's like it's definitely appealing to the melee people, but that's a kind of more like I know that people will disagree, but I feel like that community is not going to grow anymore, like the melee community. I just can't see it, right? I mean, that's always good betting against the melee community, right? but yeah, I don't know. I'm very mixed on this. Like, and I really want to play Rivals of Aether. It's just can't get anyone to get into it to play it, and I understand why as well. I think Joe Jives, who might be still in the chat, I reckon he'd really like Rivals, like on PC, using the workshop, playing as Ronald McDonald. I think that would be sick, man.
There's no unless it's the workshop, there's no Jigglypuff in that one, so no deal for him. I will also say on that note that they did say for launch, because I know the Steam Workshop is a very popular feature of the first game, that won't be supported at launch, but they will look at it as a potential post-launch thing. But I mean, this is 2024. This is so far away.
Yeah, it's ages away. So I mean, at least it gives kind of like some focus for the community for like the Rivals events, because then they'll start to be like, okay, biggest rival event before the launch of the new game, right? So
and with these games, you can trickle the character announcements over time as well to keep hype going. So.
That's true. Yeah. I don't. Who else does that about trickling the characters out to drive hype? Another series. All right, for our last segment, we have that after announcing in Jan that E3 2022 will be a digital-only event, this week the ESA officially cancelled the entire bloody thing. With the event's livelihood already on shaky ground, what does this mean for the future of the Electronic Entertainment Expo? Mikey, what is your pronouncement about E3? Is there going to be an E3 2023? They've already said there will be.
Well, yeah, they did, because they said that the official ESA statement was that we will devote all our energy and resources to delivering a revitalized physical and digital E3 experience next summer. So, kind of a bit of a promise that they will bring it back. They just won't have it now for 2022.
Swinny?
Maybe.
Yeah, promise from the ESA is probably as good as a bag of salt, to be honest. Although salt's very useful.
Don't insult salt.
Yeah, this sucks because I love the E3 period, and I know that we're still going to have the stuff happening and the announcements probably happening, because that stuff obviously hasn't worked for ages. But it sucks. It sucks for this stuff because E3 has always been that fun time, especially now that we've been doing the show. I was looking forward to we can do the E3 conference tier list again and stuff like that, and we can still obviously cover that stuff, but it sucks. It probably makes business sense. Like, we know that E3 has been on its deathbed for a while, especially with Sony pulling out a few years ago and all the issues. It's almost been a very Microsoft heavy event for a few years. But yeah, it's not surprising, but to me this does suck.
Yeah, it's a real fascinating one, because for the show, it's actually much better to spread it all out, right? Not that we really care about like having news for the show in a way, but I kind of love the intensity of just like, let's bunch all the news into 1 week, and it's just like hectic. But it made no business sense to do that. And with the nature of online distribution and directs and, like honestly, if you just wait and you go, okay, cool, like this is a pretty empty week, bang, here's some news about the new PS Plus tier list, and here's a new Mario game or whatever. You just, there's no benefit in concentrating everything into 1 week. There's literally no benefit in it. So I kind of almost forgot there was an E3 last year, I must admit. Like, it was online only. It wasn't like in person, but
I think it was last week, I actually was looking up, when is E3 this year? And I was looking it up, and then this news dropped. I'm like, that's why I couldn't find when E3 is, because they clearly hadn't put the dates up yet.
I didn't.
But it's always June. It's always like the first or second week of June.
Yeah, I was just checking.
Summertime. No, because I actually quite enjoyed it. I remember when Game Trailers was big. And it was really cool to go through a certain period and just check out all the cool trailers that were coming out. And one sort of, you'd get out the popcorn and you'd just sit there for a couple of hours just seeing all the cool shit that's coming out. And I think it was something in a whole bunch of people's calendars that they were looking forward to.
Yeah.
So it's weird though that it's the end of such a big era in that sense. You know what I mean? This thing was massive.
Oh, I mean, E3 has died off before and come back, but at the time we didn't have the Nintendo Directs, and like as you was saying, like
Competition's way
the digital age has really got to the point where it doesn't make business sense, whereas before it did.
Well, you had the other thing where, you know, when around the time the Wii, PS3, and Xbox 360 came out, everyone was like, oh, gaming is dead or dying. You know, phones were starting to come, like, weren't there yet, but like people, a lot of analysts, people like I, to be honest, would have been like, oh, consoles are going to die. It just doesn't make sense from a business perspective. And they had an E3 where it was only like 5,000 people that attended in 2008. Right. And then like you said, Swinny, it kind of had a second wind, but honestly, I think so I'm just checking it now. So 2018 was the last time that Sony was at E3, and then they pulled out the following year. Honestly, to me, that was like when E3 died, and it's been on life support since then, really, because it doesn't make sense. You can't mount the argument that you're representing everything. Like Sony's not there at all, right? Like they are the biggest, you know, like in terms of gaming, like they're the biggest brand, like they are, like you just have to admit it. And like, I mean, it's not even a big call, right? It's not even a hot take. Like the Game Awards have usurped E3. It has, like, and now that they're not going to have E3 this year, like everyone's going to be even more amped about the Game Awards because you're going to miss that, you know, week. So
talking about the Game Awards, hot on the heels of this announcement, we had our good old friend,
our mate,
Jeff Keighley.
Keels, as I call him.
Took the opportunity to promote his Summer Games Fest, which is basically his E3 rival kind of, I guess, festival. Oh, we're definitely on this year. We'll be on this year.
Of course.
He did not. And the funny part is Keighley's been such a huge part of E3 in the past that it's just like he obviously would have known for a while that it's been cancelled unless the decision was made really quickly. So he's just like probably waiting with that draft tweet ready to go.
It's true. I mean, like, to be fair, they got PlayStation and Xbox as part of the partner announcements for Summer Games Fest. I don't really understand Summer Games Fest. Because it's not a thing. It's not like, it feels like random shit pops up all the time. So then I just feel like, what's the point of all branding it under Summer Games Fest? I don't really understand.
You watch this year, it will probably be a lot closer to what E3 was in terms of conferences.
Wow.
It wouldn't shock me if basically that Xbox really hitched their wagon to that thing this year. So.
Yeah, you might be right, dude. Like if they do that, if they do it like for a week in June, right? I mean, like, yeah, E3's completely dead at that point. Totally.
Well, it's funny because even Jeff Keighley was like live streaming intros to the E3 presentations, and I think he even got his hand slapped about that stuff. It was pretty funny. So,
dude, this is crazy. This is like I'm checking this live. Summer Games Fest last year was like over the course of 3 months. It was like kind of random and just kept going on. They've already confirmed Summer Games Fest 2022 will take place during the month of June. Specific events day will be announced in the coming weeks. I'm like, dude, they are like fully trying to kill E3 now. Damn, man, E3 can't come back. How could it come back? It'll be like a shell of itself if it comes back. Damn, that's kind of crazy.
Because the Game Awards, I'll be honest with you, that to a large extent they're kind of like the Oscars for me. I don't really give a fuck what some people vote a game in. The announcements were interesting. The announcements absolutely, but the way it's geared, I wouldn't say it's not primarily an award ceremony, but the whole concept behind it being an award ceremony, it just puts me off. I'd rather just see the new games that are coming out, see what developers are saying, etc.
Oh, you like the marketing stuff?
I love the awards because we get to predict them. I just don't like
the fucking awards.
That makes it fun.
That whole Oscar thing.
We've already made an executive decision this year when we do the Game Awards coverage. We're going to have every category and vote for every category to make it more entertaining because it's boring otherwise.
Right.
And then we'll have to debate about the point multiplier at the end because that was a bit controversial.
Extremely controversial.
But there was integrity because we didn't change the rules on the fly. That's integrity.
Yeah, because anyway.
All right. Well, let's move on. E3. I don't know. It's nice knowing you, E3. I think you're dead. Sorry, mate.
Pour one out.
Pour one out because it was cool, but yeah. Oh well. See you later. Keely's the new gaming lord. All right.
Godfather.
All right. So wrapping up the news. Like as we do each week, all these very interesting articles, very interesting things that are happening, but not quite as much that we feel like it reaches the threshold that we have interesting things to say about it. So Swinny is the resident news rapper as part of Min For The Swin. But the caveat is each week we will add one word to his word limit. So we have 190 words this week. Can you confirm there are 190 words, Swinny?
There are 190 words.
We never check this, so we do believe in the honesty system. Swinny's the most honest person you ever meet, so we don't really need to check it. It would be only an error. But yes, take it away whenever you want, Swinny.
Bandai Namco have announced One Piece Odyssey, an open-world One Piece RPG coming 2022. Sony's recently acquired Firesprite Studios are working on a new AAA horror title. Acclaimed moving sim Unpacking will finally see PS4 and PS5 release soon. Pocking Rocky Reshrine launches June 24 for PS4 and Switch. Manga publishing giant Shueisha has established a games label called Shueisha Games. Microsoft are reportedly working on a Game Pass family plan allowing up to 5 users. Wadham developer Fano Mina is in danger of shutting down if they don't secure investment. After continued record profits, Capcom increasing all employee base salaries by 30%. 4 US senators, including Bernie Sanders and Elizabeth Warren, have penned a letter expressing concern the Microsoft Activision Blizzard buyout will be giving Bobby Kotick a golden parachute. Earthworm Jim 2 has been added to SNES Switch Online Library and Dig Dug 2 and Mappy Land for the NES. Bloodstain's rumoured Child of Light crossover has finally been revealed, and a Tekken 7 mod featuring Elden Ring characters has received the following response from Tekken head honcho Katsuhiro Harada: "Please stop it, lol."
Very good, dude.
That's probably the audience's response to Min For The Swin. Please stop it.
No, we love it. It's one of the best segments, I reckon. I love just seeing the concise.
This
tidbits.
is probably the only one where I'm like, there's probably nothing I want to talk about here. Like, there's not even a word that I really want to mention.
That tweet from Harada is really funny to read.
I think that's
so
really cool,
that's why I wanted to have it there. So
Well, yeah, it's funny the context that he's sort of like, it's too good that people are actually like believing it and stuff. So
well, he was also a producer on Elden Ring, so
was he?
it's like even funnier for him in that regard.
I didn't know that. That's really odd. Why?
Like
Do you know
game. I mean, it's Bandai Namco.
Sure,
So-
but he's a big producer, right? Like, it seems a
Yeah.
bit strange that he's working on it.
I don't know. I can't remember the exact title, but he was involved in the high level like executive part of Elden Ring. So.
But when you say Bandai Namco, they're more like they're distributing it. They're not, they're publishing it. They're not making the game.
Yeah, but they probably still need those people on their end to manage
Wow,
stuff
that's
from a project
fascinating.
standpoint and things like that. So.
Yeah, you're probably right. Yeah, no, that's really interesting. All right, let's move on to our special segment. Finally, it's finally time for the Bigwig crew to take a deep dive into one of the most legendary JRPGs of all time, Chrono Trigger. It will be our 5th 1995 Game of Some Other Year nominee, and will it take out the top prize? Swinny, take it away. We're finally doing it.
Finally getting to Chrono Trigger. It's only been about 2 months or something in that regard. It's been a while anyway. I think, what was the last game we talked about? I think it was Yoshi's Island. So just think about
Really?
when we
Was it
talked
Yoshi's
about that.
Island?
It was Yoshi's Island.
Shit, that was so long ago.
Yeah, so look, Chrono Trigger is a game for many people that doesn't need introduction, but I know that it's also a pretty old game and a lot of people probably just know it by name alone. So I just wanted to give a bit of context. This Chrono Trigger, it came out on the SNES in 1995, as we said, but it's almost like the first supergroup game that I can remember where they made a point to say, okay, we're getting all these people, well-known people from, these big titles and everything across different developers, and they're going to be working on this thing together. So they're what Square dubbed the Dream Team. So we had Hironobu Sakaguchi, basically the creator and father of Final Fantasy. We had Yuji Horii, who last week we said he won Lifetime Achievement Award at GDC. the creator of Enix's Dragon Quest series, and this was prior to Square Enix merging as well. We had Akira Toriyama, Dragon Ball, and also the character designer of all the Dragon Quest games. And we also had, while Yasunori Mitsuda composed the majority of the game, he actually fell ill during development, and we had Nobuo Uematsu come in to wrap up the soundtrack. So you could even consider him because he's obviously the Final Fantasy composer as well. So this big dream team.
What an amazing replacement! Got to root someone in.
And this massive dream team coming together across Square and Enix, as well as Akira Toriyama. Like, I have no idea, but it wouldn't surprise me if this project was one of the big reasons why they ended up merging as well, because they basically, they worked together on these kind of projects. Because back then, a lot of people considered Square and Enix as competitors.
But they were totally, yeah.
And I'll also clarify something that I completely forgotten about, because you hear Square and you hear Squaresoft. Squaresoft was like the American brand name, so Square was the Japanese. So yeah, it's Chrono Trigger. It's one of the most well-regarded SNES games.
And I think that's why, it was an amazing framing that you just did then. And I think that's why also it set a high expectation of, okay, we're pulling all these amazing people together, the marketing of the game. These launches in Japan were massive. They're still massive, but they were even bigger back then. You literally had to change the date that they're releasing some of these games because, the Dragon Quest games were causing kids not to go to school and people not to go to work, right?
Yeah, but this was actually the second best-selling game of that year in Japan, only beaten by Dragon Quest V.
And I guess, it's a really good framing for you because to me, and, we'll go in how much we like it and final thoughts and what we didn't like, but it did live up to, the expectations of what a game like this could do and how it looks and the sound and the story and the optional endings and all this other kind of stuff. And I think that's why, people regard this game as the greatest game of all time. I think that kind of that context and that psychology of people entering this game, they're like, hey, we're putting the bar really high. And then they're actually going over the top of it. Then people are like, wow, you got to give them credit. So yeah, it was really, really good context setting there, Swinny.
A fun tidbit as well. So people may have heard the name Ted Woolsey. So he was responsible for all the translations for a lot of the Square games back then. He had 1 month to translate Chrono Trigger.
Oh my God, dude, that's
1 month.
horrible.
1 month.
And it's not just as simple as, I don't understand Japanese, but there's a lot of cultural references in gaming, especially Japanese games. And, people go crazy on, this is mistranslated because it really means this in this culture and all this other kind of crap. So, but yeah, do you want to start off on things that we like, Swinny?
Yeah, look, there's a lot to talk about here for me. I'll just frame this that I've never been the biggest fan of Chrono Trigger. I always respected it and appreciated it for what it is. But I first played this, and actually the only time I played this, I think I did a partial second playthrough, but it was all back in the 90s, the late 90s when I played this. And I played it via emulation. This game never came out in Australia.
Yeah, how crazy is that, right?
And I think the reason why at the time that it didn't floor me was some of those reasons still hold up now, but I am so glad I replayed this game because I really appreciate it so much more. At the time when the only, I guess, JRPGs I'd played before I played Chrono Trigger was, I think, your Final Fantasy VI, Secret of Mana, Secret of Evermore, maybe Final Fantasy Mystic Quest, which is, not a great game. But, think about that. Then playing Chrono Trigger, I really didn't have much of a context of where that genre had gotten to and what this game actually did for it. But in terms of, specific things, this game from a technical standpoint is just absolutely gorgeous. And it might not be the game that's pushing the SNES to its absolute limits, but it felt like that for me when I was playing it, especially visually. This is just such a gorgeous, pretty game, and just even how on the screen at the moment on YouTube we've got the overworld there, just the way they approach that stuff, it's just visually just absolutely gorgeous. Yeah. And there's so many, everything's extra, the battle effects and everything, everything's got so much to it, so much oomph to it. Even, for instance, I think it's in the Ocean Palace level where you just have to cross a bridge, and they actually they take you down a little elevator just to lower down, and then you go back another elevator just to give the room a sense of depth. Normally, another RPG would just have you walk up.
Yeah.
You know, it's things like that they just went the extra mile.
And the
with it.
B-roll here is a really good example. It's tilted in an isometric, maybe 30 degrees. The world, as opposed to the typical not top down, but sort of, I don't even know what angle you could describe it as in most standard RPGs. Whereas it's really cool. They sort of tilted certain scenes that way, and there's even certain scenes that are tilted so it's almost side on.
Yeah.
You know, some of the castle bits where you got to climb through the walls and stuff. And I don't know a hell of a lot about the technicality of the SNES, but having seen a few videos about how games were produced for the system and how the tiling system worked and the way it was able to render things, this would actually have been really pushing how the SNES did some of that stuff. So it's quite. It would have been technologically advanced at the time, I'd imagine, for a system like the SNES as well. It may not seem like it, but I think it really was.
Well, even in battles, because battles are turn-based, but they take place in the field now, where the enemies are on screen with you like you're in the level. Even that presented challenges, because if you think to the Final Fantasy games, which, you know, a lot of the people worked on this game were coming from those games, those are static sprites that you're taken away to another field. They actually had to do all animations for all the enemies during battles. There was so much that went into this.
Yeah, and I don't want to move off. Well, like I want to loop back to that release point, like us playing it in Australia, because it's quite crazy to think about. Because people might, especially in Europe and US, like, oh, okay, yeah, you didn't get it on the SNES, but you got it on PlayStation when they re-released it on PlayStation. It's like, no, we didn't get it then either. Like literally in Europe and Australia, legitimately the first time you could have played this game was 2009 when it got released on the DS, which is just freaking crazy. Probably for a lot of people, the best way to play the game, the DS version. I still prefer the SNES version, even though it's got some issues with it. But yeah, like going to the presentation, it's not my superstar. Like it's not like what I love. Like I much prefer the Final Fantasy VI style. But you know, it's one of those games where you look at it and you go, it's amazingly executed. Like throughout all the worlds, the levels, like it's so distinct. The different, I guess in modern language you call it like biomes, right? But like the different worlds are so distinct from each other. Like you like even, you know, getting into the time traveling mechanic, like you do straight away know which era you're in, which isn't like sounds really easy, but it's actually so well executed that it doesn't matter where you are. You're like, okay, I know where I'm at now, or I'm, 65 million years ago, or whatever it is, and all this other kind of stuff. It's like, okay, like it's really, really clear. So
largely, there were a couple of instances where I wasn't quite sure exactly where I was in a certain timeline.
Oh, okay, interesting.
Like I don't know if it was the 600 or the one. No, it wasn't.
There's two timelines that are pretty close.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
maybe it was that
that's-
one.
yeah.
The other ones are pretty distinctive.
Yeah,
Really, really
yeah.
distinctive, especially because you're talking about millions of years.
So
between some of
we
them,
should
but
check, like, have we all beaten the game? We didn't
I-
even check in at the start.
I haven't. I got pretty far into it.
Where did you get up
I
to?
looked it up, and I reckon maybe 80% of the way through. Because
80%.
To go on a very quick tangent, I quite like the game. I never played it originally. And by originally, I mean like you guys, I never played it back in the 90s or the early 2000s when it maybe was, I wouldn't say more relevant, because these kind of games continue to exist. When you look at RPG Maker games, you look at all the Kemco stuff that you keep reviewing, Swinny. It's not like the genre died or anything like that. But there would have been improvements since then. There would have been things that have happened in the industry, plus a shit ton of games that I've played ever since. So it's really hard to, like with all the other games we played, to put myself in the shoes of someone who played this back then. And back then it would have been amazing. But even now, I really enjoyed playing this. I mostly played it on my my little
Don't
device.
start talking about it. Unless we get sponsored from it.
My little DS. And yeah, I absolutely love what I played of the game. It did sort of get towards the end, or I'll admit at maybe like the 60-70% mark, it got a little bit of it became a little bit of a chore, and especially because the story admittedly didn't really drive me that much. I didn't get captivated by the story all that much at all, to be honest, while playing the game. But we'll talk about that in more detail.
Yeah, I want to come back to that specific thing when we covered stuff we like, because I have stuff to talk about with that.
Yeah. Okay, interesting.
Do you want to come in the frame?
Yeah. What are you doing?
Sorry.
What is this? What's my guy? It's like I was like, what is that frying pan sound? And then he's literally got like a frying pan. Okay, so
right, to answer
sorry.
wait, hang on. For people who are not watching the video, so I was hearing a frying sound. I'm like, is that like Mike's house? Like there's a shower going on or something, right?
Oh, sorry.
And then I actually literally see a frying pan come into frame. He's got like a sausage or something. It's hand delivered.
No, it's not a sausage. I'm vegetarian. It's
You're a vegetarian now? Since when?
I've been a vegetarian for a while.
How long? I didn't know that.
Anyway,
How long? Just say how long.
I don't know, a year and a bit.
No way,
year and a
really?
half, I don't know.
Holy
I
shit.
thought I told you before
No,
because you know,
definitely not.
certain
Definitely
partner
not.
of yours
Yeah,
thinks the same way. So.
Yeah, my whole family's
I thought I
vegetarian
told you
apart from
about
me. Wow. Okay, interesting.
Anyway,
Take
sorry
it
about
over.
the tangent. I didn't expect that.
Yeah. So to answer your question, so I did beat this game again. I actually didn't know if I was going to beat the whole thing. I definitely wanted a refresher. I didn't realize how much I didn't remember about this game, so I'm very happy that I did play through it all.
Yeah. So I beat it, but I didn't get one of the great endings. And then I was looking at how to do that, and I'm like, oh yeah, I think I'm done. Right? I'm like, I'm okay. I'm satisfied. So, and what else did you want to touch on in the things that we liked, Swinny?
Look, you can't talk about Chrono Trigger without talking about probably most famous part of the game.
Go on.
Which is
Its soundtrack.
yes,
Chrono Trigger has one of the most legendary soundtracks, and we mentioned before the fact that Mitsuda actually fell ill, but he was responsible for the vast majority of the tracks in this game. And oh my god, these tracks! Like it's in definitely my top 10 game soundtracks. I wouldn't argue if anyone's got it in their top 5 or top 3
All time.
because
dang.
it is probably one of them. Like I could sit there listening to each track, and I'm like, yes, each track is almost a banger. You know, except there's a couple. Like I'm not a big fan of Frog's theme, for instance, but like just the overall themes, I think it's the Charlotte's theme, Corridors of Time. These are just all-time legendary SNES music tracks. And the big thing for me though is it actually elevates the entire game, the soundtrack. You know, soundtrack is normally, it's great, but the rest of the game is good as well. To me, it just the mood of the game is the soundtrack's so important to that. And if it wasn't as good, then it definitely wouldn't be the same game for me. So
You know what? Like the one thing for me is, and this is all subjective. I think the tracks, and you're 100% right. Like so many of the tracks, you listen through them and like, damn man, this is just like killer tracks. Like it's awesome, kind of almost ambient music. Some of the music as well. Like you just put it on if you're working and stuff. I really didn't like the battle music in the game, and it really kind of like pissed me. Like it was just, it's too much. And it's like one thing about battle music, it's super hard to do it well, like in a JRPG. And like I can think through a lot of other JRPGs. I'm like, it doesn't bother me at all. It's almost like that's fine. You want to get the sense of like, okay, the pace is picked up, all that kind of stuff. But there's something about it that's a bit grating, and it honestly kind of like put a bit of a pall over the whole soundtrack for me, because it just when I put it in my head, that's the thing I remember, the battle music straight away. But then if I start thinking about the other songs, I'm like, yeah, they're awesome. Like it is. You're right. It's definitely one of the best soundtracks. If that's the best thing about the game, for me, can we talk about the time traveling stuff? Yeah.
No, I was just going to say it's like
I was going to talk about the battle system you just mentioned.
No, I was just say it's if a lot of people say about Chrono Trigger, the soundtrack's often the thing that comes.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. Yeah. And Mike, you want to talk about the battle system?
I was going to talk about the actual battle system because you just mentioned it. I haven't played as many, nowhere near as many RPGs as you, Swinny, so you can correct me if I'm wrong.
I don't think there's many people that have, so that's a pretty moot statement. But yeah, go on.
That's true. That's very true. So two really cool distinctive things about the battle system that they have, because it obviously uses elements from other types of games with the bars that fill in depending on the time, and you can change between wait and active mode as well. But
Yeah, what
is
did
really
we all
cool-
play it at? Like, I played it as active. I never
wait.
changed it. Oh, you
I think I
changed
had
it. You
wait on.
cheat.
I know. I always play
Well, I
as
don't know.
Wait.
Oh,
I
you
just
you
prefer the
filthy
wait from
animal.
the Final
I-
Fantasy
It's so much
days.
easier playing as Wait.
No, I don't. I'm not actually a big fan of ATB. So I
Neither
prefer,
am I.
So I prefer Wait because it puts it closer to a standard turn base. That's why.
Yeah, same.
People would like literally online go, "I'll make the game easier by putting on Wait." Right? I'm like,
okay.
I
I didn't realize.
refuse.
It's
I mean,
an
the game
option.
was-
It's
I
an option in
refuse.
the game.
The game.
Yeah, so it's easy mode.
Speaking of difficulty, I did find the game was pretty easy. It was weird
Yeah,
compared
wait.
to just any of those games. It was way easier. I don't know if I've ever really died in that. Oh no, I died against the dude that trains you magic. I forget his name. In the
Yeah, the
of-
trainer in
end
the
of
end.
time.
yeah,
of
the
time.
trainer. He's killed me. But other than that, it's like you almost can't die in that game. Anyway, back to the
No,
battle
if you're
system
playing
itself.
as Wait versus active, it makes a huge difference. But yeah, go on.
Probably a huge difference, yeah. But in the so two awesome things. Number one is the fact the actual enemies are in the world. They're visible. You know you're going to run into an enemy because the enemy is right there in front of you. It's not like Final Fantasy where you're just walking around and all of a sudden, you get attacked by an invisible freaking whatever that's not on the map. It's not in front of you. It just randomly attacks you. I like that. I like the idea that the enemies you bump into are actually there and you bump into them as opposed to just randomly generated per se. The other thing that I thought was really cool and different to a lot of those types of games that I played is the synergy between the characters. And the fact that it encouraged you to play with a different character just to see what synergies they have in terms of the abilities to play with two different characters. And I experimented a bit with that, which I thought was really, really cool. And I don't know. I mean, I know other games have that to some extent in the sense that you use one character to debuff an enemy, let's say, and then you use another character to do something. But to actually see unique things happen when you combine two characters, I don't remember that many games doing that. I mean, Swinny, over to you. Whether that many other games that did a similar concept as that?
Oh, look, there's definitely JRPGs that do it, but in terms of like your big name Square style games, no, it's not that common. This is definitely one of the most notable and earlier games that had those like cross techs. They're called the skills techs in this game.
Yeah.
And it makes it feel really unique. Like at its core, to me, it's a fun take on the ATB style system, but it's a nice, simple system that I think has enough depth to it that it doesn't get too boring. But that combining text, as you said, it makes every party makeup feel really different because it completely changes what options you have. It's not like, oh, well, everyone can do an attack, everyone can do a heal. It's like, well, two of these characters together are going to be able to do a big attack, and I'm going to have that other person on healing, and things like that. So you mentioned difficulty. This has, to me, one of the best difficulty curves in a classic RPG where it's challenging enough. And look, if you don't know the strategies for some of the bosses, you can die on them a couple of times. But generally speaking, like it is considered one of the easier classic RPGs, but that's not a bad thing. Like some of those were really punishing. I think this was a really great example of how to actually do that difficulty in one of those games.
And this is in particular a very almost Japanese thing where, they wanted X amount of hours out of these games, like 50 hours, 60 hours, 40 hours, something like that. And putting grinding in the games, it was like the way that they almost achieved that. Where like there's so many JRPGs where it's just like if you go through the game, do everything, do all the sort of side things as well, you just can't get through it. Like it's near impossible. Like you have to grind some levels at a minimum.
I find this one required that much.
I'd say older. No, I'll just say older games. Yes, it's much better these days.
Oh no, not modern.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I should be clear. I'm talking about 90s RPGs.
Yeah.
So this was very out of step from that. And definitely the wait versus active makes a huge difference because I switched like just to try it and I'm like, this is significantly easier with turn, like forcing the turn because there were so many bosses that it was like they're hitting me midway through and I know that they wouldn't be able to, right? So from a strategy point of view, there's things you can do to almost prevent them from hitting you, like even like through that. But
I feel like there were some bosses that were hitting me even though I was just waiting. It was in wait mode, but I was still getting hit by multiple attacks.
It's
I don't know how
probably
that
because
works.
there was a bit of a wind up when they activated it, so it actually still comes through. But the funny thing to me is, so I actually played through the vast majority of this game with two of my characters on Berserk the entire time. Where they were just literally attacking and I couldn't control. So I was only controlling one character. And I actually thought it actually ended up being a really cool way. But then I got stuck in one of the first major boss battles against a major villain, where it's like you have to do certain elemental things. And I'm like, I'm gonna try to get through this with these two bastards on the Berserk. And I struggled, but I got there.
That's fun.
But it was. That strategy did not work in the late game, but it was really fun for most of the game.
Dude, that's exactly like me with Elden Ring, when I'm like, I'm gonna use this first weapon that I get in the game from a boss, was like a mini boss, and I refuse to change, even though like late in the game it's a shit weapon to use. Now I've realized, looking at the stats and stuff like that. Talking about the elemental stuff, I also like that as well, in terms of, because that was another layer with the battle system where it really was disadvantageous to have two party members of the same element, because like certain fights just didn't make sense to do that, because it's also like some of the bosses and enemies would flip elements and stuff like that. So it actually made you consider, it's like, okay, even if I want that character, maybe I should pick another. And then some of the characters, like, unless I fucked up the game, didn't have elemental magic. So it was kind of cool. Like, it kind of made you go, well, if I want elemental magic, I probably can't pick that character, but I like that character. It just like created like a nice trade-off, is what any game system that excels does. So yeah, from my perspective, I can't fault the battle system. Like, it was really, really cool.
Look, I guess you're about to mention the time travel stuff.
Yeah.
So, look, the way this game is all about time travel, surprise, surprise, but the way that it works in the mechanics and the design of the game is really, really cool. Like, think back to, at this time, games may take some risks, but especially for a big RPG developer and publisher, to say, we're going to have a game that's all about moving between these time zones, having quests that impact other time zones, and you have to move back and forth. Like, there's some quests we have to move between like 4 different time zones, and it's pretty, like, some of the steps are pretty crazy. And I was reading that it was a bit of a nightmare to bug test as well. But just for instance, like, here's an example. It's not really spoiler, but you've got a robot companion, right? You can leave him back in a previous time zone to help plant trees, and then come back thousands of years later. And there's a shrine dedicated to him for being, like, like, for saving the earth and stuff. And that's just so cool. Like, you didn't see that in these games back then.
Yeah. And I don't want to, like, there's time travel, there's multiple endings. I don't want to spoil like how many endings there are, but that, to me, like, that's the most distinct thing of Chrono Trigger. I remember, like, growing up, and then more in Australia, it was like people started playing it through emulation in the late 90s, early 2000s. And they're like, oh, this game's crazy. It's like, go check it out. It's got like so many endings and stuff like that. And this was before, like, there's game FAQs, stuff like that, but it's still kind of an era where it's not like now, where like Elden Ring comes out and then like 1 week later, everyone's like, this is all the endings. This is all the major secrets. And there's kind of cool things about that, but there's also cool things where it was a bit more mysterious. And that was always the most distinct thing for me, Swinny. Like with this game, more than the soundtrack, it was just like, how did they fit so many endings, so many branching paths, so much like engineering into something that's like 4 megabytes, or like, 4 megabytes, I think. It's crazy when you think of it that way.
And this is like, maybe they had one, but like, this had a new game plus. Like, Square didn't do that. And just like, for instance, there's a chapter you get to, it's just called the Faded Hour. So, but basically that's when a lot of the side content opens up to do with your party members. And that stuff, I didn't do all that stuff when I originally played the game. And when I did that all this time, so I did pretty much everything I could. And that was probably my favorite content in the game. And I think that's, gets into, when we talk about stuff we didn't like, it kind of, I think that's why I felt a part was missing when I previously played it, because that's actually where you learn a lot about these characters' backstories, and you're almost like their character arcs resolve. So, and that a lot of that involves moving between those time periods. So that's where that really shines for me. So,
And I kind of love that about this game. There's so much shit there. It's like, I know I keep on talking about Elden Ring, it's topical, but just like Elden Ring in terms of there's stuff that they're like put so much effort into and thinking and mapping out, and you probably argue maybe 15% of people will see it. It's kind of like, I kind of love that. It's kind of sick, but there's something kind of beautiful about that in terms of like, they just respect the art, and that's what it's about. And they kind of don't give a fuck if people see it or not. They're like, we're going to put the masterpiece together and that's it, done. Like, it's up to you if you want to experience it all. So yeah, I love the whole branching endings, and like I could tell, like when I was playing through the game, because it was mostly blind when I was playing it. It was just like, oh man, I feel like I've gone down certain paths.
I know you shared a clip with us when you hit an unfortunate like battle cycle that you couldn't get out of, and I'm like, he doesn't have a certain party member. I'm like, that's interesting. That's interesting.
I'd say the way I play games, it's just like, it must be bad, because like when I played Dark Souls, I was kind of like half blind, mostly blind. Like I was just trying to get through that game, right?
No.
And then like, I think, what's his name? Solaire, right?
Yeah.
Like he got fucked up like late in that game. I got him, I think I did most of the stuff I needed to do. And then I fucked something
It's
up.
so easy to screw that stuff up.
Oh, okay.
I do not blame you at all for Chrono Trigger, because the situation we're talking about, which is pretty big difference between the endings and stuff.
Yeah.
If you don't have if you don't know how to do it, you're probably gonna miss it. So
yeah.
Look,
But it's still cool. I still liked it. That's the weird thing about it. Like I was like, because that's the beauty of like having multiple endings, and you can stuff things up. That it feels more meaningful. Feels like, oh, okay, and it resolves, as opposed to like, not that I've played it, but Mass Effect trilogy. It's like, you stuff things up, and then there's an ending that makes sense for the stuff ups and stuff like that. So
look, do we want to get into some of the things we probably not as big a fan of?
Yeah. Why don't we do that?
So and this does tie back to, I guess, one of the reasons why I wasn't so impressed with it back in the day was I wish this game had a main character. Like, you play as Chrono, but
sort of does, yeah.
he's basically your party at the start.
I think the frog's the main guy.
Chrono is basically a piece of wood in this game. And it's like, and it's by design, of course, but it does. I was so used to at that time. Again, I'd only played a few, but like having these main heroes that were just really interesting, and Chrono is just like nothing. And I don't know if it would make the game better to do that, but it's one of the things I didn't like personally.
Fair point.
And the story itself, so Mike, you're mentioning this, that's why I wanted to kind of stop you, because I knew we'd bring it up now, is the story itself is a little average for me. I feel there's certain points where it is interesting, and there are some like twists and turns that I quite like, especially later in the game, but it's not the most compelling story for me. So
same.
I think again, one of the reasons why back then I'm like, it just didn't feel like the most legendary game ever that people hyped it up. But everything else now I appreciate so much more. Whereas the story, I still feel just doesn't hit for me. Like, there's big stakes, but there's also times when I'm like, it just feels like the characters are doing something that, and they're wasting time, So I don't know. Like, maybe you guys didn't feel the same. But
No, I kind of felt that. Yeah.
I like, before I go back to you, Mike, like for me, it's so hard to extricate the story and the branching parts and the endings, and like to me it's all like kind of one in the same, so I'll probably rate it a bit higher. But I mean, like, also the other thing is, I'm not a story person in games, so to me it's just like, this is just dopey shit, right? Like, this is like dumb like stuff, and I go along with it. I'm like, but it's super tropey. This game's super, like, I don't know. I think a lot of these games are super tropey.
Oh, yeah.
So
but this is also, they also specifically wanted to inject a lot of Akira Toriyama's humor into this game. So that's why this is there's elements that are very much like Goku, people are joking kind of stuff,
But I did feel the frog was the main character, which was kind of weird because it was kind of like I don't know, in my playthrough at least, almost the least impactful of the characters you play, but it did feel like from archetypal perspective, it was the main character. But yeah, I don't know. Like, I totally agree with the point on the Chrono Trigger thing. Yeah, I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know if there really was one. I mean, yeah, it was supposed to be Chrono, but being the silent protagonist that he is,
yeah, it's a silent protagonist, right?
Like you said, he's a piece of wood.
Yeah.
There's a couple of other things for me. You guys obviously might not feel the same, but while the not having random battles is great, as you went further into the game, it basically almost was like you knew when the battles were coming, but they were unavoidable. You literally couldn't avoid them. And it made backtracking through some areas just annoying, especially weak enemies where you're like, okay, I'm going to have to fight these five
that
enemies
happened to me a few times,
There was just literally no way
my
to really...
game on 4 speed or 16 speed.
Yeah, to just avoid those encounters.
Yeah.
Sometimes on the overall map, I love the design, but sometimes it's hard to tell what you can enter and what you can't. You've got to like keep moving until you know what they are. Like you're moving around trying to find a name to pop up. Small gripe, but it is again like this is a game where the positives do outweigh the negatives, and I guess that leads into probably the last thing that I felt. And this is a common thing amongst classic RPGs, but there are times when it's not exactly clear what you're meant to do, where you're meant to go. And if you're not following a walkthrough, and I did have to look some stuff up again, even though I played this 20 years ago.
Did I?
It's very much sometimes you're like, oh, do I have to go back to the castle and then I have to fight these 5 battles on the way there, 5 battles on the way back?
Yeah, like the bloody soup part.
Yeah, it is very, but that's a common issue that's shared amongst these games. But it is still to me a bit of a smudge on this game. But look, if that's all I have to dislike about this game, then
why can't it be more like Elden Ring, where you know exactly where you need to go next?
Yeah, you get to the ending and beat it. You're like, oh shit, I'm at the ending. Yeah, I never felt like that with like a Zelda, right? And I know like Zelda's not an RPG, obviously. I don't know. I keep bringing this bloody game up, but I mean, these games are compared to against each other. I didn't feel like that with Final Fantasy VI. Like, I never felt really like so stuck in that game. And I'm not that good at these games. Wow, frig, this game, there's no way I would have beaten this game if it did come out in Australia. Lucky it didn't, because I got stuck multiple times, and that's like when I had to look up, like, how do I get through this? Like, what the hell? Where? Because it's also got the other dimension of like, you could be going back in different time periods. So I'm like, fuck, am I supposed to go here or there? And I just go around in circles for a bit.
And you don't have easy access to that all the time.
No,
so sometimes you might have to go through a whole area just to get back into the portal to then travel to another area that way. Yeah. So you're like, oh, well, I'm not going to bother doing that until I've explored everything. So you spend ages walking around that area and then like, well, I'll have to go do it. And then, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
You know what happened to me? I was jumping for joy and then I got stuck because I'm so fat.
I'm like, I literally am fucking like, don't understand that joke.
You know?
I don't know what is
still
happening.
Not understanding. I don't know. This sounds like.
Never mind.
Can you press that? Can you press that?
It's
magic,
your mum joke.
Can you press that magic button that turns it into a 2-man show?
I could. I've thought about
It'll probably screw things up.
Yeah, it could screw things up. I almost did it before when he did his
it's
when I said cool story break. When I said cool story break, I was
your
like,
mum is so fat that when she jumped for joy, she got stuck.
Okay.
That's the joke.
When you have to explain the joke,
I used it on myself. Oh my god, because I'm.
Is there
fat.
anything else you guys want to mention there, or do we want to wrap up?
Look, like, this is the game because this is the stuff I don't like. This is the game that made me realize I don't like JRPGs. Right? Because I've played a few JRPGs and I really enjoyed them. Like Final Fantasy VI, I love. It's like one of my favorite games. But I think that's Final Fantasy VI. Like, the more JRPGs I play, I'm just like, I don't know if I like these games, man. Like, I played a bunch of Final Fantasy VII and I'm like, I'm fucking hating this game. Like,
damn.
I don't think it's a bad game. It just doesn't click with me. It's super mashed up styles. It's just like, it's just, I'm not enjoying
the original
my time.
7?
Original.
Or the remake?
Original.
Yeah.
Original.
Oh, wow. That's
so,
top 10 games.
Yeah, I'm
That's
like,
interesting how it's different, yeah.
I think this game is so well executed. It's like, I can't criticize it. It's like soundtrack, design, flow, story, optionality, everything like that, all coming out in 1995 on like 4 megabytes. And
Dude,
I was
4
just like,
megabytes, by the way, is 2 seconds worth of this stream.
Yeah, exactly. I'm like,
It's
damn,
nuts.
this game has made me realize that I'm not an RPG guy. Like, I'm not a JRPG guy. So, yeah, I know that makes you sad, Swinny. I know that
was,
we're not going to be friends anymore.
Are you talking? Oh, so you're saying megabytes because it's a 32 megabit ROM card.
Well, it's not quite that. Yeah, the maths is a bit different, but it's a few seconds worth of the stream, really.
Yeah, is it a 32 megabit cartridge?
Megabit,
Yeah,
yeah.
that's 4 megabytes.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, 4 times 8, right? Oh wait, is that? Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
I just because I read that before. I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
12 seconds.
Look, I
13
think
seconds.
that's fair. Like it's
Nuts.
RPGs are one of the most trope-ridden genres you can possibly get outside of maybe dating sims, and if that stuff.
Disco Elysium. It's probably the only one.
What is wrong with you?
What? I'm just saying
Overplaying.
it's not trope filled. If you want a non-trope filled RPG.
Okay, no, let me clarify. JRPGs, I'm talking. about,
JRPG
yeah.
specifically.
Yeah.
No, you're
So,
right. Yeah.
so if that stuff grinds your gears, then that genre is probably outside of maybe a couple of them. I'm probably never going to hit well with you, but it's interesting, and it's interesting when we come to talk about the last game that we have in our list, Earthbound. But
Have you played Earthbound at all, Mike?
No. Yes. Sorry. I was gonna say no, but then I remembered I played about 20 minutes, which doesn't count.
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
So,
just
yeah.
the last. I just wanted to get the wrap up about Chrono Trigger because, so as I said, it's like coming back to this game was probably one of the biggest eye openers for me because I'd always been what I'd consider a bit of a Chrono Trigger hater. Like in regards to like everyone considers it one of the greatest games of all time.
I totally do.
This coming and replaying this has made my thoughts around the winner for Game of Some Other Year. I don't think we've even said Game of Some Other Year in this whole bloody segment.
Yeah.
Game of Some Other Year 1995. It's made that decision a lot harder for me, and
I like that.
that's why I'm really happy for this segment in that regard because it made me kind of realize that I've got a new favorite SNES. Not favorite, but like a new favorite SNES game. One of my to add to my favorites.
Yeah.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Okay, like, I'll throw to Mike in a second, but I want to loop back to what I said in a weird way that playing this game now, because I didn't play it back in the day, playing it through, the two things I realized, I'm like, one, I'm not the biggest JRPG fan, definitely not. It's not my thing. But at the same time, totally can see how people consider this the best game ever. And I know that sounds totally contradictory, but as I said, if you're into that genre and that, floats your boat, it's like, what is it missing? To me, great characters, great art, great music, good pacing, doesn't really get boring, lots of options, lots of stuff to do, replayability. So I'm like, yeah, I get it. Like, I never understood the whole Final Fantasy VI versus this game. I'm like, Final Fantasy VI destroys this game, but I didn't play it. And then having played it, I'm like, I personally prefer Final Fantasy VI, but I can see how people prefer this game. Like, and that's big for me because I love Final Fantasy VI. But Mike, what's your overall final thoughts on this game?
I really enjoyed it. What do you think, Spludge? You were sitting there watching me play it most of the time. I'm just going to bring
I think we need a health check on Mike.
into the picture.
He had a stroke or something.
I think that week off, he must have been doing some. There's a subreddit. There's a subreddit called "Took Too Much." I think
Yeah,
Mike's
took too
been,
much.
featured on there.
He's still flying
Took too much cat.
a week later.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. For what it is, again, I'm not a huge JRPG player either, but for what it is, I actually really enjoyed the game. Spoken about the pros and cons, of course, so the story didn't drive me as much as I had hoped, but then the concepts behind it and the battle system and the time travel bit captured me enough and captivated me enough to continue playing it. So I really liked it, yeah.
Can I just say, it's so hard to take you seriously when you're sitting there stroking your pussy. It's just like, so ridiculous. All right. So, yes, we've got one more game in 1995, Game of Some Other Year, which is Earthbound.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think we'll be covering that next week, just a heads up to everyone.
No.
Probably not. Mike is not going to finish it
I
by
will
then.
probably finish it this week if I can, but I mean, I was pretty far in, so, but
I'm struggling, man, because I'm like about about 15 hours in, I think. And I'm like honestly going, I might switch to playing it on the Switch now, which is going to put me all the way back to the start. I don't know. It's tough, man. It's really, I find the game very hard to sit down and play in front of the TV because that's how I'm playing it because it's on the Super NT.
I'm playing it on the SNES Classic, the mini console, which has been great.
Yeah, yeah. So I'm playing in a similar way, just I guess through almost the original means, but I just find it really hard to fit it in, the way the game works and everything like that. It's not a pick up and go kind of game. So whereas that's why it's so good on the Switch for me personally, that I'm almost fuck, will I go back to square one? Maybe I will. Which is kind of annoying. But...
A warning for Mike that it's. The game doesn't show its hands very early. It actually takes a while for the stuff to really to even get party members and stuff. So
I honestly think, Mike, I you know how I was saying I don't think you'll play Andromeda and shit like that. I feel like the chance of you beating this game, quite honestly, is very low.
We'll see.
Very fucking low.
We'll see.
I honestly think I might have to concede defeat on this game at some point. And I'm very stubborn with this shit. So, all right. Well, that wraps us up for Chrono Trigger. Excellent game. And it wraps us up for this week. And we can comfortably say, Swinny, that we are not going to be covering Chrono Trigger next week.
We finally done it. We fucking done it.
Finally done it.
Finally, I've been moving that goddamn segment from tab in our spreadsheet, run sheet, to tab to tab to tab. I literally created the thumbnails for this segment 2 months ago, so I've just been copying the links each time. We got it done, man.
We got it done. We got him, baby. And we don't know what we're covering next week. I think, what is it? Lego Star Wars comes out this week.
Yeah, but you said you're probably not going to buy that. So...
Well, you're going to buy it for the show, right? No, I'm not going to buy that. I don't know.
We'll see. We'll see what maybe we'll pull a cool segment out of the mothballs that we've been.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's commit to that.
Something fun that's not a review or not GOSOY. It's something like what game will Mike possibly beat this year, and there'll be no candidates.
And this is the other thing I didn't consider actually. So yeah, next week let's do some special segment, and then the week after that, I'm actually going to be in Melbourne. So we're going to figure out what we're going to do. Are we going to do a live show in person?
Do a live Earthbound GOSOY, baby.
Should we have an audience? Should we sell tickets and merch? We'll have to figure that out. I haven't really planned it, so I'm not sure. I don't really even have a laptop. I'm not sure what we're gonna do.
I thought you said don't even have a life. God, what does that make me?
I don't know. Okay, anyway, I know. Got to think of that offline, but yeah, that's us for now. Goodbye.
Bye.
Goodbye, people.
Goodbye.